It was the night before the Battle of Horseshoe Oasis, and the camp of the Dalat Snowcats lay encircled the U-shaped ridge, and their fires spread out sparkling through the night. There's uneasiness that passes through most of the camp, some seeking the sanctity of their family, knowing that the battle to come at the dawn will not see everyone return. Others sing and drink and fill their minds with optimism. A few seek out the shaman and hear what his bones and songs have to say of their fate, the battle to come. A select few inside the Gur of Ulun the Smiling pore over mud maps and figures and stones in the sand before them by oil light, planning the final touches of what will hopefully be the slaughter of Al-Rid and his profane brigands. There are women boiling water and strips of linen and wool and gathering sap and sharpening bones to make needles and thread to heal the wounded that will surely come out of the oasis after dawn. You can hear off in the distance beyond the larger fires at the center of the people's camp an argument between a mother-in-law and her son. Qadan, where would we find you?
We actually just lost Caius a moment ago.
Yep.
Sanai, where would we find you?
Sinai is sitting, going over their things carefully, the horses, paying special attention to every bit of padding, the balance, where everything sits. It's more for her comfort than the horses. But she's watching it all go on. She's interested to see how these Snowcats prepare for a battle.
Many of the older warriors seem cagey and stalk and yell at each other, where Yargai's men would have been calm, like a storm brewing. These forces seem more interested in cunning ploys and ambushes than the kind of confrontations that Ulun has designed for the dawn.
It surprises her how noisy the Dalat people are, even on the edge of battle. So unlike her own camp, or what was her camp, their family, which, led by Yargai's calm demeanor, was almost peaceful.
They say you'll be... Oh, so you go?
No.
You go, Caius.
Wanting to spread a bit of Nikan calm amongst the Dalat. Qadan is just sitting cross-legged amongst the others who are preparing to climb the cliffs up onto the high ground to rain down arrows, and there he is with just the vertebrae from various meals of goat and lamb. He's with the vertebrae of the animal, and he's just with his dagger carving away at them, sharpening the already sharp edges to make them into bone caltrops. But not speaking, not moving. Apart from the occasional flash of his knife in the campfire.
Teneka, your eldest, sits next to you, still wounded and unslung. He says, "Remember the Red Hills, remember our climb. Use that at the dawn. I wish I could be with you, brother.
Have you any instructions? You are my Khan Teneka.
Don't fall. Do not fail.
When have I fallen? He doesn't.
Not yet.
But he doesn't mention anything about when have I failed.
In Ulun, where would we find you?
He would be prowling, like walking laps of like the people getting ready, just like never stopping, like a wolf, just like moving back and forth and like through and weaving through people and just like going through sort of preparations mentally. He would like look at it, the way that he'd studied them before, with the way the Dalat fight, and how like showy it is and how like inefficient it is. And he would like wonder what these bandits fight like. He would imagine it's going to be a lot more efficient than these cat people. But he'll be like thinking about that and like wandering through and like trying to bolster people he sees who like might be looking nervous or whatever. He'll like put a hand on their shoulder and give a squeeze, wandering through the place.
As you wander, you hear Hokojin like coming out of her girt, like furs, like all in disarray, her hair unkempt. She's like yelling, tears in her eyes. You dolt, Beaties, you dolt! You've built the latrine too far away from the girt, and I must walk in the cold night across the way to make my water. It must be closer. Oh, I am sorry, mother-in-law. I am sorry, says this young warrior, jittering as she kind of berates him further, and then like strides back off to the gur, like sobbing. And he like crestfallen kind of takes his wooden shovel in hand and turns as he sees you approach. Like this young Nikon warrior kind of puffs himself up and wishes that he was holding a bow right now than a dirty shovel. Chulan, welcome to my family's gur. Apologies.
We all do our part. And where the latrine is important as where the men are. When we ride, Children will like shrug.
I will ride tomorrow. It will be my first of many battles, he says, tightening his grip on the shovel.
There's only one battle, and it's the one that you're in. So don't think about the ones that come after, just about the one that you're in. Because he like recognizes that sort of thinking in himself as well, and in Qadan, and like it's always going to be something better down the road, and so he's like trying to dissuade this guy from thinking that way.
The older men say that Ulun's forces will be split into three, that one will climb the highest ridge, fire down on the enemy, while another attacks their barricades to open it up for the riders. Where will you be, Chulun?
He like thinks about it, wishing that he, for a minute, I think, like a part of him wishes that he would be firing arrows, but he knows it's not his place. I'll be in the thick of it at the barricade.
I'll not fail you. We'll ride swift once we're given the signal.
Not too swift. Leave some from me, he'll say, and he'll like punch his chest.
I better get digging, Chulun. I'll see you at dawn.
Make sure it's close enough this time.
He smiles at that and walks off the brighter for it. Continue stalking off through the Dalat camp. So uneasy, hours passed, and before the pre-dawn glow, the climbers begin to ascend. Teneka bids you off, Qadan, before moving back to the baggage camp with the other wounded and old women. And like even grown men around you, you can see are fearful as they climb in the dark, uttering like whispered curses as like a rock falls here and there. one man falls, and you can see at the corner of your eye his hands go up first to reach for the ledge that he's let slip of, but then valiantly after to his own mouth to stifle this as he just falls silently down below. Can I get an athletics check from you, Qadan?
I get a 13.
You slip as one of the rocks you climb up comes loose in the darkness. It flings off behind you, and a wave of vertigo hits you in the face. But as you clamber up again, piercing your hand and fingers, you can find leverage a foot down below. One of the men nearby reaches down and grabs you by your hide and hauls you back up onto the ledge and keeps groaning and concerting himself. Ascending, you'll take 4 piercing damage. Your hand bleeds quite badly, spilling down over like your hide and trousers.
Angry with this slip in front of the Dalat, he presses on, and as I've got second story speciality, I should be able to climb faster than them. This is my specialization, is climbing. I've expertise and second story work, so I don't lose. I can climb at double the speed of others. So I'll try and overtake and get to just be one of the front climbers.
Then you'd be the first to reach the summit of the ridge and find a place of purchase to look down the gloom, like slowly letting way now to a glow.
As we get up towards the ledge, I'll just get up to the ledge and glance over and duck back down just to see if they have managed to get any sentry up here themselves.
Looking around, even in the gloom, you can't see any movement, any signs of sentinels, nor even of like a camp or lean-to or like fire pits. It's just like a barren, windswept ridge up here. The bandits have not placed sentinels up here, it seems, even after like a couple of minutes of waiting and watching to allay your fears before maybe allowing the other men to move up on the ridge with you. You wouldn't see a sign of anyone up here on the high ridge.
Then getting up, just inspect the ridges, inspect where, if they do send anybody up, what would be the best routes, and just at the easiest points to get to our high ground from the bandit camp. I'm going to spread my caltrops on those things, so the first hands that come over will get cut.
So you and the other climbers spread out, putting down these caltrops and finding a nest with Purve to fire down onto the camp. You can see that there's a ring of tents and small kind of temporary buildings or lean-tos around what must be the oasis in the center. There's just like a flicker of light across like a portion, the center of this valley that must be the body of water of the oasis. And it's around that this camp is girt by firelight. You cannot see, obviously, firelight at any other points around the ridges, though would sense that there would be people, no doubt, at the 2 narrow passes, which make up 2 of the 3 entry points into the oasis.
We've coordinated which pass they're going to come in on, so
the larger, yeah.
We'll choose a position with the best view, or choose an area with the best view of that bit, and the best cover from arrows underneath, and just sort of set up there and wait.
Okay. Can I get a stealth check from you?
24.
You slink into the nooks and crannies or lay down amongst the rocks with the other men, and to anyone observing the ridge, it would just appear as a ridge. As dawn begins to spread across the land, it's at that point down below where Ulun, from atop his pony, with a whip with many coloured tatters on it, raises it up high and then brings it down swiftly. And there's a roar of about 2 score of sweaty, tense, armoured men around you as they begin to jog forward towards the open pass of Horseshoe Oasis. You amongst them, Chulun can see beyond bramble and thicket and staked barricades that link between like the two ridges that give way to the pass. And there's men lined up atop it and beside it, blocking the way. Though, boys, your nervousness perhaps to see that their numbers there do not seem to exceed your own, as far as you can discern them from amongst the press. There's the strong scent of piss and sweat in your nostrils. One man has his hand on your shoulder. You don't know why, but it's shaking so violently as he yells out, chorusing with the rest.
Yeah, Children is going to try and keep it together and like not lose it in the press. This is not how he's fought previously. It's always been out in the open plain, and it's always been him and his siblings. And now he's with a bunch of strangers in like this thick press. He's used to like being able to run and move and dodge to his heart's content, but here it's a little bit tighter. So he's just kind of keeping an eye out for any of like the bandits who might like start firing things down at them and like which way he would go. And he's just kind of like watching quietly, not like howling and screaming like the others, sort of thoughtfully watching the thing that's coming.
Sanai, back south of the ridge, you and the other riders, Altani, amongst them, wait and watch as you see forces gathering to repel Ulun's infantry as they march at the pass. The tenseness about you is palpable, though still Altani has not waved her whip, and though the horses are eager and sense something and kind of when it can paw at the ground, no fervent warriors ride forth to join the fray, and you hear it begin from where you are. It starts almost like a song, like a banging of drums and chimes and bells, and then like voices, angelic at first, it echoing up to some discordant chorus, but then it quickly just peels away or splashes into the sound of violence and horror of men screaming in agony beyond, and the amphitheater of the oasis kind of echoes it and reverberates it back down, washing over the warriors. One boy in his saddle turns and begins vomiting violently down the side of his saddle. The man next to him has tears in his eyes, but just like bites his lips and keeps them sealed together. You can hear the creak of his leather, and the sounds of men in horror can be heard wafting on the breeze. Though still, Altani will not join the battle.
Sanai feels her own tenseness, the urge to be there. She has not been apart from her brothers like this. She cannot see Qadan. She does not know if Chulun is safe. Her only solace is that Teneka at least will survive this, even if the rest of them do not. And she sits on her horse, leaning forward even as the horse's ears are back. She has a pot, just one of the clay pots in her lap, in front of her, balanced, strapped on, and in it are embers attached to brands, these fire brands, and she's instructed several of the other horsemen to have them as well, to be thrown at tents to cause chaos and fire and havoc where they go. But she cannot think of that right now. She thinks only of the brothers that she cannot see and that she yearns for.
Down below, from the ridge, as the light of dawn washes over the oasis, you can see Ulun's forces, Qadan, marching up, and then they break into a sprint. You cannot spy your brother, but know that he must be amongst them, and you see them smack into the barricade ridden with brigands, and great violence play out below. But still, the men about you lay prone, waiting. One man looking at you with gold eyes puts his a dirty finger to his lips, and a hand up to like hold and wait until men rush in to reinforce the barricade. And it's then that he rises with the rest, and Tarbur hauls on his great bow, and you hear this like score of and arrows on shafts about you as men rise up from the stones and fly down from the ridge and just begin to riddle into the ranks of the enemy about you, Chulon. Everyone needs to roll initiative and put it in the chat. You'll get a surprise around Qadan on some foes that you can spy below you before the initiative plays out.
So initiative, Caius?
Yep. 8.
So Chulon, you're amongst the first line rushing up to this brambled and staked kind of barricade, swarming with men of all sorts and all creeds, lined up together with weapons menacing and calling a war cry to rival your own throng. You're amongst the first to clash into their lines. You can see in front of you a man towering behind the first rank. It's a huge bearskin hat on and wields a huge woodcutter's axe that he swings about with abandon. There are arrows falling from the ridge above and from the oasis camp further on past this obstacle. You can see a man nearby spitting. He's noseless, wears like a fur hat over his sweaty brow. There's a man menacing you with a spear and what looks like a Kamani tribesman by the jerkin that he wears, wielding a small axe, hacking down from the barricade above as men just like wash around you. One guy gets driven off his feet as an arrow hits him and he disappears from the line, and then with a you're into it. What do you do?
So now that he's in it, he's going to begin howling like the wolf that he is, and like making tons of noise and like beating at his own chest. And just like lashing out here and there with like light blows and like flicking his fingers towards people's eyes and things like that in the chaos. But mechanically, I'm just going to take the dodge action, boringly enough.
The bearskin hatted man from behind moves forward to take the place of one shot through from an arrow from above on the barricade, and will heft his axe up in 2 hands and try and bring it down upon thy head, sir. But you step aside, waiting, preparing yourself, and the axe strike is wide. He reaches up for another overhand strike and cuts down again with surprising speed, considering the heft of the weapon. But this time you bring your blade and the axe head is driven wide from your body and nearly overbalances off the barricade. What's your passive perception, Chulon?
It is pretty good, actually. It is 14.
There's a strong stink above the rising one of bowel and blood, pine and lamb.
Okay. I don't really know what that means, but Chulun might. I'll think about it.
You can make a nature check.
Sure. And my guess is that it's something flammable. We'll see. 15 on the die, which I think means it's a 14. Yeah, 14.
Yeah, it looks like the platform that this guy strikes at you from, and like the stakes about it, are greased with oil, and the wood like soaking through with pine sap.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll call that out then to those around me, to be careful with climbing and that it's like been greased.
Then the arrows fall down. On this layer action, it'll be the arrows from the Oasis camp as well as the arrows from Qadan's folk. So everyone in the melee needs to make a dex save. DC 14, please.
$17.
On a success, nothing happens. On a fail, you guys take 4 piercing damage. The enemies as well. So the Jostic, the Dameron in front of you with the bearskin hat, he's struck through the back with an arrow, but doesn't seem to notice, doesn't seem to have struck anything too important. And men scream about you as arrows like flood down, hitting both sides. It seems like a shower, indiscriminate. There's 2 separate camps firing in. The noseless brigand to your right, he takes an arrow to the side, but still fights on savagely from the barricade. From your left, the man menacing with a spear will thrust it at you while you contend with Jostic the Damarand. But it's at disadvantage too, and you step aside, knocking the spear thrust. The noseless brigand gives a breaks off the arrow, pulls it out from his wound, draws a curved knife, and will move overhanging from the side of the barricade and try and strike down into your shoulder with both weapons for a miss and a miss. So you just like got your blade out, ching, 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 as all these weapons are like striking in over top this barricade, keeping these contenders at bay for now. Qadan from the rocks above. You'll get your surprise attack and your regular turn.
Okay, for the surprise attack, he spots the bowman and aims at whoever's commanding the bowman before he's realised that he's there, and loses an arrow, hits an AC of 20 for 13 points damage.
Another arrow strikes into the back of the bear-capped man before you, Chulun, and he nearly doubles over in pain, groaning.
So is the guy who's commanding the arrows next to Chulun?
Yep, he stands like 5 feet above him, hacking down into him with this long hafted axe.
Okay, then
from the top of the barricade.
So for my main attack as well, or for my next round attack, I launch another one. Hits an AC of 17.
That hits.
Okay, and this time it does 13 again.
Whew. Bloodied, like from this third arrow strike, this time into just below his nipple. He like gives a choke and points with his axe and calls out in a language you're unfamiliar with to the men further back who are firing their arrows into Ulun's attackers, and tries to like cut across the din, communicating to them. There's arrows, there's archers up on the ridge. You can't believe this man with 3 arrows in him has not fallen to his knees, though he's one of the larger you've ever seen, and not of the plains. He's a huge black beard that goes down to his belly and long curly black hair down the side that juts out from the bearskin cap that he sports, and must wear some armor beneath the rotted hides that cover his body and make him look all the more looming. Is there anything else you wanted to do, Qadan?
No, well, except I'll duck down whilst I'm getting my other arrow, so I've got full cover from below.
Okay, certainly. Sanai, still Altani, is a statue, the whip tasseled in her hand, but not raised, signaling a charge as yet, waiting still for news from the pass.
Sarnai thinks she heard over the din the unmistakable wolf howl of one of her brothers. Sounded like Chulun, but she resists the urge to respond, waiting until Altani tells them they can break from their cover.
Kamani axeman hacks down the man next to you, Chulun, and as he struggles to pull his axe from the man's brains, the dead weight of his victim like pulls him forward from the greased platform down into the bloody sand nearby to you, and he just uses his movement action to stand up and move around to flank you with those that attack you from aloft. And it's your turn.
Okay, is there a way for me to... I want to basically not be flanked. That's how I want to try and move. I don't know.
One to the side, one to either side would just provoke one opportunity of attack because there's 3 in front of you and 1 behind you.
Okay.
Or you could disengage and move back from the line, or forward into behind them.
You can't
But
move
to
back from
break
the
the
line
dodge would provoke 1 opportunity of attack either from the noseless brigand or the Chugan exile.
The big man, who's taken 3 arrows, I'm actually going to turn and strike at him. I'm the only one getting hit, though. I think it's risky. Wolf wouldn't just stand there. I'm going to swing for The first is a 14 plus 6, so a 20 to hit.
Certainly hits.
The second is only an 11, and I'm going to flurry of blows. So that third one will be a 17.
17 hits.
Okay. So the first one is 7 damage, and he needs to make a strength save.
He fails. 12.
Okay, so he's not prone then.
He makes the dex save, which he also fails. So he falls prone on the grease platform and then stumbles over down nearby to the Kamani Axeman at your feet.
Excellent. Okay. The second one did 9 points of damage.
9 points of damage. So what was that in total? Sorry?
I think it was 7 and 9, so it would be
16.
16, yeah.
And did the strength save happen on your first attack or the second attack?
It would have been the first.
Okay, so the second attack is retroactively at advantage, so you can roll 1d20 if it's higher.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, the second one could have hit. Yeah, it's an 18 on the die. Yeah.
Okay, definitely hit. He has like thick boiled fur on and something underneath it, but it gives way to this blade strike, maybe two-handed down into his belly or something.
Yeah, it's on knees and elbows and all the rest, and maybe a head, but that's going to be 7 damage as well.
Okay.
So 23.
Yeah, you stab him in the head, but him, you break his nose and a couple of teeth, and blood just sheets out from his face. He's badly bloodied, nearly slain. I'm going to make a morale check for him. And yeah, he's just so dazed and like brutalized that he's kind of stumbling around trying to get free. His flight instincts have kicked in. He looks a panicked thing, like a man too close to death.
Okay,
which means he's in a frightened condition.
He'll batter like this guy down as best he can, and then like fall into a defensive stance, so he's not able to dodge. He's just waiting for the inevitable.
Okay. Jostic steps up to his feet, uses his movement. He has the frightened condition, so his attack's at disadvantage, which is a natural 1. So the axe like thunks down nearby to your foot, and you step down and crack its haft, and it slips from his bloody fingers. For his interaction, he'll pull out a curved dagger and try and just strike at you with the maniacal. Ah! You avoid a crit for a 13 all up, which I'm assuming misses.
That misses, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a madman's kind of like a defensive, like idiotic strike, but he's just bleeding too badly, and his strength is fleeting. A shower of arrows comes down. Everyone needs to make dex saves in the melee. Jostic succeeds. The noseless man takes 2. 2 if you failed, my lord.
I got a 12, so I think that fails, is it?
That's right, yeah. 2 piercing damage. Maybe it just like cuts through your arm or grazes you somewhere and you don't even notice it in the craze.
I have a question. Can I use my deflect missiles as a reaction? Is it like it's not an attack, right? So I can't.
I don't think you could have used it for the first one because you didn't know it was coming, but this time would so. So I'll say yes. You can kind of like 7 heartbeats after the first shower comes down. You see the other one like arcing up through the air. Almost like responding to the one being fired down by Qadan and the other climbers. So yeah, you can apply it to that. What does it mechanically entail?
So I get to roll a d10 and reduce the damage I took by 1d10 plus dex plus monk level. If I reduce it to 0, I can throw the missile back.
Nice. Yeah, you won't be able to throw it back at the sender, but obviously someone nearby to you. They're all in melee though, so it will be at disadvantage, but certainly.
Where to go? Yeah. So he'll like I reduced it by 11, so definitely. He'll like I guess see the arrow coming and like with insane reflexes like manage to grab it, and he probably doesn't even grab it. He just like moves out of the way so that it fires towards somebody else.
Yeah.
Because how do you grab an arrow realistically?
Yep.
So with disadvantage to 13, which I don't think would hit any of the guys around me.
No. So you dodge just thunks into the ground off behind you, and you don't know if it hit someone or not because everyone around here seems to be screaming or swearing.
Okay.
Jostic disengages and will try and clamber up the barricade and flee. And he does 17 on the die. cuts himself maybe as he like scrambles up away from the press.
Already had his turn, I think.
Yeah, that was the shower of
Pardon?
arrows. That was my reaction for the
Oh,
shower
my
of
bad.
arrows.
Sorry, yeah, I got confused. Tuigan, Exile, the spearman. He'll thrust down at you, two-handed Chalun for a fail. He overbalances and the spear just falls down, so he draws a scimitar from his belt. The noseless brigand will hack down with his hatchet at you. That will be a 21 to hit.
Yes, sir.
For 4 piercing damage.
Okay.
And then I imagine for his bonus, he'd be like helping Jostick up back onto the barricade, and they're like conversing, yelling at each other over the din. Qadan, you're the next to act up on your rocky perch.
Another arrow comes down, striking the guy with 3 arrows in him, and it does another 12.
Describe what happens. What's his demise?
Oh, he's Bloody's running, and he slips slightly, and as he slips he jolts forward, and an arrow just comes down through the back of his neck, and he stumbles off and he's lost in the mass of people falling into the mass.
And then do you lay back down at your rocky perch? Or is there anything else you want to do on your turn?
No, I'm just efficiently just repeat, fire and repeat, fire and repeat, fire and repeat.
Nice.
So,
until you're out.
Rhythm going. I'll just say to the others around me, do not waste arrows. Do not get nervous. Take your time. Find your take your bead and make sure it's the enemy, and then down him. Do not waste anything.
Yeah, you can see a couple of the Dalats next to you just like exulting or like yelling out gleefully as they just fire into this turkey shoot. But a few listen to your calming words and fire more reservedly. Sanai, frustratingly, you just cannot help but focus on the sounds and distant sights of the slaughter playing out at the Horseshoe Pass. But still, Altani will not allow the forces to charge. The boy is finally finished puking, and the man's like weapons are shaking in his hand on the other side of you. Your horse is like calm beneath you and kind of pulls at the bridle a little and shakes it free. You can feel it swish its tail at its hind parts and stomp with its back leg at a fly or insect. But its calmness is like that of Yargai's.
She tries to be like Yargai. She tries to be calm, to trust that her brothers will be safe, that they are wolves. They cannot be easily killed. They are too clever. But she chafes, waiting. I think you muted, Nico, if you're talking.
Sorry, could you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
But I think you muted again if you're talking again.
One of the old men next to you with the shaking weapons, his horse springs forward half a dozen steps, and he turns about it halfways and says to Altani, "My boys are both in there. We should be too. There's glory enough for all. We must go in." And she says, "Hold. Back to your place," and stares the man down. And he like kind of looks back once at the battle at the pass, and then like roughly hauls his horse back in line next to your own Sanai.
Sarnai looks over at the man. My brothers too. But we must wait. When the time is right, we will strike, and the battle will tip in our favor. It will be the better for it. Patience.
Chulun, a Kamani axe, comes out of nowhere but you duck at the last moment and it whooshes overhead, and it's your turn.
Okay. He'll strike behind him like with an elbow towards where that axe came from. Will miss for a 11.
Yeah, 11 misses.
And then I'll make a second attack because I'm unarmed. That's a crit. Oh my god, baby.
This is against the Kamani Axeman?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's going to be... Ooh. So 7 and 4 is 11 damage.
Okay.
And then whatever...
Roll a D10 and a D20, please.
A 9 on the D10.
Okay. He loses his reactions.
On the D20.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I'm just switching to my PDF and it's conveniently deciding to stall. Okay, here we go. 12 you say on the D20. Apologies. Yep. Roll a D5, so D10. It's into 1 to 5.
3.
You strike out. He loses 3 fingers on his fighting hand in addition to the damage. So his weapon drops from his grasp. He cannot use two-handed weapons. He's badly bloodied, nearly slain, and loses his reactions until the end of his next turn.
Excellent.
He screams holding a stump, like, ah! His blood squirts up from it. The fingers just drop down into the mess.
So he'll like strike out twice, and then he'll like drop back into a defensive stance. I'm going to spend my bonus action to dodge, which I can do as a monk. Spend a key point. That'll be nice. For me.
Okay. Jostic the Dammer just like falls pierced down through the spine by an arrow from above. Another shower of arrows falls down. Dex save from the melee. 2, 3. And if it's a fail, 3 piercing damage.
17.
The Tugan exile who's been thrusting down with a spear, he's shot through the back by an arrow and is badly bloodied, as well as the Kamani Axeman. Those two are kind of like harassing you from above. Several others up and down the line look to be like being pulled down and stabbed by the Dalats, and a few are even making purchase, clambering over onto the barricade, though where your section in the line is, you have not ascended up into it yet. The badly bloodied Tugan Exile will roll a morale check, which he crits, so we'll fight on and strike down with his spear, two-handed at you, my lord. That'll be a disadvantage, right, because of the dodge?
Yep, that's right.
Natural 1. Third natural 1. He'd nearly lost his spear before, so I'm going to say this time it breaks, or it's just like lost. Oh no, that's right. This was with a scimitar, so he drops his scimitar as well from his blood-slickened hand, maybe as he's shot through the back.
We'll like laugh at him now, like having seen this man blunder his way through the battle. Then Chulun will drop his own blade onto the ground and then just like crack his knuckles. I'll make it fair.
Brutal. Inspiration. The noseless brigand will take this opportunity to hack down at you with his war axe for disadvantage, which will be a 16 to hit.
That misses.
Okay, and then with his dagger.
Sorry, 16 is a hit, sorry, my bad.
Okay, 15 hits.
15 misses, 16 is my AC.
Okay. So he strikes out twice and hits once. You will take 7 slashing damage. Grazes your shoulder from above, and he begins barking out to the others. This guy is Tugan as well. Tugan means like from the Hordelands, like your people as like a greater group. Speaks your tongue. So you would hear this close to him as he's yelling to the men, pull back to the camp, pull back to Alred.
There's nowhere you can go, wolves won't find you.
Yes, you've already got inspiration. Qadan from your perch above. You can see a few of the men around you have shot near a quarter or more of their arrows. You draw another fine shaft to the bow and look down at the slaughter beneath.
The one that's sort of most panicked, or is firing the most wildly and the most panicked. I'll just reach out and take the arrows out of his quiver and put them in my own, and tell him to take his dagger and guard the point at the top of the climb, and to watch the camp and warn us if the archers are getting into position to launch attacks on us, and basically stop him wasting arrows. And then to the others, I say, I'll stand up, say, take your aim, wait until they raise their hands, so and you can see a bit of flesh. Go for the chest or the neck, and don't waste your arrows. I say, losing an arrow and missing.
Nice. The younger archer rushes off behind, down to where the bone caltrops guard the pass, and he watches to wait. Waits and watches, sorry. The Kumani axeman behind you, Chulun, will try and strike. He'll move across so that he's flanking you to counteract the disadvantage he currently has. It's one strike with his axe for a miss, and for a 16 on the die, which will hit for 4 slashing damage. Sorry. He's going to provoke an opportunity of attack, actually, and climb up back onto the barricade for a 30 on the die, which will be a success.
Almost certainly a hit. It's a 15 on the die plus 6, so 21.
And damage?
2 and 4, 6.
Describe his demise.
Oh, glory, yeah. So he tries to turn away, but Chulun is not going to let him. He'll like grab the back of the man's like hair and like pull him back, and like wrap his arm around the guy's throat and like press down in a sleeper hold, and the guy will just like become unconscious in a matter of moments, and then dead a few seconds later.
And it's your turn.
Okay, I'll look around me and see who remains. The Kamani is now dead, is that right? And Jostik is dead.
Yeah, the Tugan spearman and the noseless brigand with a hatchet. They're standing on the barricade, strewn about with corpses and a few men clambering over on the top. And they're calling out for those that can understand your tongue and theirs to pull back to the oasis and Elred.
Okay.
Retreat.
So do I have to climb up on this thing to get to them?
Yeah, or move around to either side of it, which will provoke opportunity of attacks.
Okay, I mean, I'll climb. It's well within my wheelhouse. What do I need to do?
Just an athletics check.
Any chance of an acrobatics check instead? Okay, it probably doesn't matter.
No.
Athletics is a 20 total, 18 on the die.
Yeah, certainly. You can grab up to 2 sharpened stakes and haul yourself up onto the blood-slicked and greasy platform as you see Dalat men pouring over with you, and these brigands pulling back to the center of the oasis.
Yeah, once I get up there, is that my action to climb?
No movement. You've still got your action and bonus action.
Perfect. So I'll try and grapple the Tugan exile. Lord. It's pretty good. His DC is 16.
Yeah, he gets it. 15 on the die, plus 2, 17.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll try and grapple him, but he's stronger than he looks, and so I'll just... that'll be it. That'll be my turn.
There's cries of horror from some of the men about you as you fumble for this man, but he kind of steps back, maybe overbalancing into some entrails, and so your grasp is lost. You turn to see these little flickers of light piercing through the sky, screaming down towards the barricade. The first one hits, and there's as fire begins to flare about where some of these arrows hit. One hits a man climbing up the barricade, and he falls screaming with this flaming dart through his chest down amongst the other bodies. Can I get a dex save from you, please, Chulun?
Sure.
DC 14.
Yeah, it's a 21.
Okay, you succeed, as does the Noseless Brigand. The Tugan Exile takes 2 piercing damage and 3 fire damage as an arrow strikes and fire flares up nearby to him, which kills him. He just drops to his knees, clutching at this flaming brand before you, and like stumbles face forward down into the barricade. Fire begins to spread, and there's this acrid stink as black and grey smoke begins billowing up from amongst the brambles and corpses, and men screaming, some in pain and others in fear, rush about. The Tugan Exile just like chokes on blood as this flaming arrow strikes him. But the Noseless Brigand will disengage from you and sprint away from the kindling barricade, rushing towards where the archers beyond must stand. Qadan, you see this. The smoke screen sent up by it will give disadvantage to the attacks from you men up on the perch. And the scout whose arrows you'd requisitioned calls from his perch, "The archers, they are moving. They're moving away from the pass." He like cups his hands together for his voice to carry over to you, Qadan, and then puts his hand up to ward off the dawn glare and look back down into the oasis below. And it's your turn.
They are using fire arrows. You will be able to see them as they light their fire arrows. Shoot them the moment they ignite their arrows. Turn your aim onto the archers, I say. Do not waste arrows in the smoke. Aim at the archers. You will be able to see them clearly with their fire. And saying that, I take a bead on an archer and miss.
Other volleys fire down from the advantageous purchase and strike into the archers amassing below, though not enough to drive them off yet. Sinai, there's a gasp up and down the line of assembled cavalry as this smoke screen goes off, cutting off your view from friendly forces and foes alike, and the unease about is ramped up. Even Altani grimaces at it and breaks her stoic composure and urges her horse onward a few steps. She turns her head to the side. "Nikon girl, they say you are a swift rider."
I am.
"Go and tell me what wolf eyes see." And she points with the whip up towards the morass of slaughter beyond.
Sarnai is off faster than Qadan can loose an arrow.
Pa.
You bolt off, Mare just like taking to it. You give her the bridle and she puts her head forward and kicks off at frightful speed, galloping towards the pass. The slaughter grows larger as you approach, and you can see flames connecting together from points across this trapped barricade, sending up dark grey plumes. Standing aloft, you see your brother amongst some other warriors. A few of them are struck through with darts, though he seems to be moderately unharmed for now, backlit by growing flames and men running about in chaos. You can see a dozen or so of dead and more wounded laying about of both sides. And though the left and right, like far side of the constructed barrier could be passed by maybe 2 riders max abreast, the central part of the barricade will not so easily be dissembled by what infantry have survived here, and will most likely like burn out, taking some time before any cavalry could pass through in like a great number or in like an offensive line. A man with an arrow in his back rushes past you, screaming, clutching at a hand. He unsettles your horse, and her nostrils flare, and she paws at the ground at the rank odor of blood that wafts over this place, nearly equaling in smell like the noise of the grisly affair. But it takes your full turn to get within that detail of the pass.
And this was our only entrance to the pass, yes? Our only
There are
entrance.
2 others, though they are narrow, rocky passes that could be barricaded and held quite easily by a few, and Ulun did not wish to test either of them, fearing a bottleneck. But here is a fiery, brutal one before you.
Yes, Sarna takes this in and frowns at the situation, but her heart lifts to see Chulun still alive and well, and fighting with the strength of a wolf.
You see him fumbling, reaching for towards this brigand with bloody hands. So the man is taken from him by an arrow to the back, and he falls into the mess. Some Dalats roll about in the blood, trying to extinguish the flames. None seem overly active in like pulling away the barricade or destroying it, fearing being burnt by the flames. You look about and see Tarbur calling as they got an arrow that struck through up his chin and opened the bottom of it, seamed up along the bone of his jaw. But he yells out for his men to form up about him and push on beyond the barricade, that to stay here amongst the arrows and flame is death. They must push on to make way for the cavalry to push into the oasis. Komani Axeman is slain. Chulun, you're the next to act. Looking one way from the barricades, you see retreating brigands rushing towards the center of the oasis as arrows from the ridge above fire down from Qadan and the other climbers. And as you look over your shoulder, you can see Dalat's clambering over the barricade where it hasn't burnt yet. And beyond that, a lone rider approaching the battle from the rear, and recognize Sane.
Okay, so we take down this barricade. So he'll bellow for the Dalat to like work on that, to like make room for the cavalry, or else they're going to escape down to the oasis. So he would like shout at whoever was close, like, pull away the barricade. And he will attempt to help them with that. I think that's probably the best thing to do, because otherwise it'll just be infantry running around, or cavalry is useless. So he's going to like get down and like try to pull big chunks of it away to like make space for a few horses to go through at the same time.
Yeah, like knocking over support beams or like hauling stuff over. Certainly.
Exactly.
Can I get an athletics check, please?
Yes. A 14.
So you haul away one of the pylons, and this horrendous kind of bits of like rock, bramble, and stake like fall free, allowing one kind of break in the barricade as the fires spread, though not enough for any more than another 2 cavalry abreast to push through. So that's sort of like 6 at a time. But other Dalats who see you at this move to help, and Tarbur barks for half of his men to peel off and assist you, and the other half to like push forward to where the brigands are fleeing to cut them down. So you'll have advantage on your next athletics check as men move around you and begin following your lead, Chulun.
Cool. Sounds good. Yeah, he'll just be bellowing for them to get there as quickly as possible to do it, because he knows that he can chase these men faster than the Dalat can. But nonetheless, he'll like help. The barricade's more important, so he'll help with that.
Share of arrows. There'll be no arrows on the melee where you are, so you don't have to worry. But up where you are, Qadan, on the cliff, those archers below are firing up now at you guys, but they're going to be with disadvantage. So they'll translate to you make a dex save with advantage from your rocky perch above.
Okay. Just a second. With advantage, I still only get a 13.
13's a just a fail, so you'll take 4 piercing damage as an arrow strikes and maybe grazes through your side or leg, causing a wince of pain. Nearby, a man screams and goes to the ground with an arrow in his belly. It's an unsettling scream, and the arrows clatter about the stones around you. One falls nearby to the scout as he calls up, "They're firing! They are firing from below, and some retreating." And then he calls, "Tarbur and some men, they give chase. The barricade burns." And some men like call back to him, but most kind of just concentrate on darting about the rocks and not being hit by arrows when finding an opportune moment for them to loose their own. It's your turn, Qadan. Oh, sorry. The noseless brigand disengages from you, Chulun, and sprints back to the line, or sprints further back, I should say. And then it's Qadan's turn.
The fire! We need to beat the fire, says Qadan, whipping off his fur cloak, and with fast hands, he's working incredibly fast. He gets his bladder of water and just drenches his fur cloak in water, and runs to the edge above the fire, and ordering the men to follow suit as fast as they can. Throw soaked furs down on the bit of the, if there are bits of the fire, just concentrate on those bits. He says, concentrate on the bit where the fire is burning up fastest, and that the men can drag. So basically, if there's fire which is preventing the men from getting through the barricade, we'll be aiming our cloaks at those bits.
Certainly, inspiration's a great idea. It will take you a full turn, however, to douse your jerkin and get all the way down there to do that.
Even with fast hands?
Yeah, the height that I imagine you are up from them to climb down to it to be effective. Yeah.
Okay.
Be 60 feet plus. Yep. And I'm going to say mechanically that will translate to, on a failed check, you take fire damage clearing the barricades, but in this case, you'll negate the damage of a failed attempt and begin to like put out some of the spot fires with like wet cloaks and jerkins.
Can we do it throwing down the cloaks from above or not? That's what I sort of had in mind.
Sure, though I think it would be less effective.
Yeah, it probably would. No, I'll take the extra round and get down there.
Okay.
I'll leave half the troop
above too.
Everyone will take off their cloak and douse it, but we'll leave half the men up with the arrows still firing, and the other half will go down to fight the fire.
Okay, sure. Sano.
Sarnai is watching the speed at which Ulun is ordering these men about. How long does she think it will take until the barricade is cleared enough for the cavalry to come through? Is there any way to know, or would she be... because she's trying to decide if she should wait until it's clear and then give Altani the signal, or go back with her report?
It looks like the left and right portions of the barricade have enough for two horses to pass abreast, and then one in the center near where Ulun is for another two. You'd think at this rate the entire barricade might take another half a minute or more of men dying and the barricade being cleared, more or less. But yeah, I don't think Sanai could be certain, and I think
And feeling the urgency, she'll ride back to Altani. With the news in her mouth. We could fit 6 riders through. It is barricaded and burning, but we can fit 6 riders through at a time.
She nods and turns to those assembled and barks out, form up into 3 columns, 2 abreast. We'll punch through the barricade. And a couple of the more fearful, like mutter or look amongst themselves at the prospect of charging through, like a smoke screen and like a bottlenecked barrier. But none will defy the Khan's sister. And they begin filing out in these 3 long spear, like columns, a dozen or more riders to each. The chink and clamour of their war gear rises up to mask somewhat the sound of brutality beyond. Ulun below, a couple of Snowcats come up next to you and like take your lead and put their weight behind some pylons, even as like flaming brands fall about them.
Yeah, I'll just focus on trying to get that barricade as open as possible, as quickly as possible, and like calling for all of our men to help with that. And athletics check, is that what I do?
Yep, but with advantage by virtue of being aided by the Dalats.
Baby, yep, that's 19 on the die. So 22 all up. 23.
There's a great groan from the center of the barricade, and this gutted, Tugan criminal at the bottom of it can only scream in horror as the flaming mass at the center of it gives way and it slides down like with rubble and flaming stakes. A couple of Dalats caught up in it, wounded by the flames, but like a large opening now through this flaming barricade and smoke screen, enough for the cavalry to pour through in greater number than before. Into the oasis beyond. You can see Tarbur and his men not escaping, but moving through the smoke screen and disappearing charging down into the oasis beyond, and hear his goat horn blaring, calling for the cavalry to come to their aid. And you hear it, Sane, as you're forming up in one of the 3 columns of Altani beyond the oasis. And there's a great roar of the riders as they're about to be summoned in, and the excitement reigns.
Can I be ready to grab a horse if I don't want to experience, will they?
They don't have spares in the charge, but the wounded, old women and children rush through in the last wave after the cavalry, and they gather up weapons and arrows and have spare horses.
Okay, I'll just wait for something like that.
But you wouldn't expect a spare horse in the charge.
Okay.
So you stay where you are beneath the collapsed barricade or nearby to it?
I guess I'll begin running. Once there's a gap and it's been established, I guess Chillin would start running after the people going to the oasis. Let's make sure every single one of these profane defilers is dealt with.
Yeah, a couple of other men are running on alongside you, exulting as the barricade is destroyed. They rush through the grey and acrid smoke to where you can see beyond. A few wagons, carts, and fences have been erected around some camps, which presumably form a perimeter around the oasis beyond, where warriors and wounded men are rushing toward. Shower of arrows will be directed at the archers above, up on their perch. Though, that's unseen by you guys for now, so I'm not going to bother with that. Qadan, you and the men who have climbed down here with you, the dozen or so, begin throwing these wetted jerkins about the fires amongst the rubble where the brambles have been overturned by your brother and the other Snowcats. And looking to your left, you can just see this acrid smoke screen obscuring your view of the enemy beyond. And to your right, 3 long spears of horse charging from the Dalat camp beyond, careening towards the Horseshoe Pass. What do you do?
We use the cloaks to stop the smoke and then climb back up.
So you're going back up to the archer's perch?
Yep.
Back up here, you can see down below the archers who had been firing flame arrows into the barricade, moving back now to the perimeter of the camp around the oasis, out of range of your own perch because of the advantage that your height provides. And that with the thin trail of wounded and survivors from the barricade, they're forming up a second line there. You can see several figures down below, moving amongst the lines as they form. Though from here, your bow shot range will be near at disadvantage, firing down the camp around the oasis. Though your men have some success picking off some of the laggers, the enemy is retreating beyond effective bow range.
Is there a place where we can get within range?
To descend down the ridge on its northern inside and cross ground, you could gain range on the camp beyond. But from up here, it would be ineffective given the range and cover that their second line provides.
Mm-hmm. Oh well, we'll have to start leading and follow. Basically, we'll be advancing to a place where when the cavalry go in, we can follow in after them and support.
Okay, so you're going to go down descend the ridge into the oasis.
Yes, but be sort of using stealth as much as possible and cover, and then only close the distance to loose our arrows when the cavalry have gone in.
Okay, the descent down on the inside is not so treacherous as the ascent on the outside, so you don't need to make an athletics check, but you will need to make a stealth check to obscure your passage and for the men around you to obscure their passage if you want to gain some kind of advantage on the reforming enemy beyond. You will have advantage on the stealth check if you want from the smoke screen that they provided by the destruction of their own barricade.
Oh, excellent, because my first stealth was poor, but let's see. I get a I've obviously angered this Skyfather today. I get a 7 at advantage.
Yeah, you notice across the like through like the smoke and haze, a couple of men pointing and shouting, saying they're climbing over the ridge too. And a few of your men are similarly not obscured by the smoke and rock as they descend. But descend you do.
Hopefully, if we're staying out of bow range until the cavalry have gone in, so hopefully they'll be if they want to get us at long range, fair enough. But let them waste their arrows.
Nice. Sanai, the men and women riders about you in your column yip and hoot and holler as they kick from like a canter into like a military gallop headlong into the corpse strewn and rubble laden what was the barricade through like the smoky and clamour, and you can hear horses screaming and men like exulting with glee as they ride through, cutting down a few of the stragglers, although it's too slow to get away. And your horse like slows her pace somewhat as she reaches like the carpet of dead and ascends up where the barricade is like safe for passage to like a speed of a trot, and then with kind of a lurch cresting over the ridge of this barricade and gaining speed once more through the smoke screen and into the oasis proper. As you and the riders about you charge and roar kind of as one, rushing through, you can see now that you're in open land through the smoke screen, as I described earlier, these carts and wagons kind of gird up in similar to a Tugan or like Nikon style around their camp, protecting their water, and men moving up onto it. But there's many kind of like places that are sparse or opened in this like defensive wall, I guess, this haphazard wall. It's not well defended. There's way too many gaps in it, and there are still half a dozen or so men running and screaming back towards the barricade beyond. What safety it might provide. You can see 100+ feet or so across the plain before this mock wall. Familiar figure of Alred and several others of note flanking him, moving up and down the lines, shouting to those reforming his Ramathari tongue. There's a strange-looking man next to him, tall and thin, nearly as tall as the Dameron shot down by Qadan's arrow. And he has a pale disc set into his forehead. His eyes glow even from here, and he barks orders at the men around him, forming up as well as Alred's second. Something about the distant sight of the man unsettles you in the same way that Shikshi, the Nikon shaman, unsettled you, but you're kind of on this inertic track at the moment in this column of cavalry pouring in towards the enemy.
Sarnai feels a knot in her stomach at the sight of this figure, but she looks instead to the ground in front of her as the riders begin to spread out, having come through the barricade. She sees Chulun up ahead, sprinting towards the secondary barricade, this line of wagons. She lets out a howl, and as she comes to him, will reach her arm out.
Yeah, I guess he's like running, and then he hears the howl, and he'll like turn around and see, and throw his arm out as well, and try and jump onto the horse.
Yeah, I'll try and swing it behind me.
Perfect. Yeah, you can do so. It's a practiced, known move, and you can like leap up and haul with your combined strength and lift your brother up onto the rump of the mare.
And then we'll keep barreling forwards.
And just seeing that out of the corner of his eye, Qadan lets out a wolf howl as well.
There's a brief smile as Sarnai hears the answering howl from Qadan, even as far away as he is from wherever he's hidden. And she knows that, for now, the wolf pack is well.
Okay, we're going to do a second round of initiative here with some of these new enemies as you guys approach the second line. So you guys are welcome to retain your previous initiatives, and I'll just add these in.
Do we have to?
No, you can keep it. So about top your sister's horse, riding double and looking over her shoulder, you can see as this screen clears and this hasty wall, sparsely dotted with warriors, growing large as the horse thunders toward it beneath you, Chulun.
Yeah, I guess I'll like grab. I don't know if Sarna has her bow in her hand. If not, I'll grab it from like the side saddle and start to fire. If she does, then I will.
It's in the side saddle. You could easily get it.
Yeah, so he'll do that and like knock an arrow on fire towards the wall. I don't know if he would like necessarily pick a target or if you could even see them at this distance necessarily. Who's who?
Yeah, I'm just gonna, if it's cool with you, roll a d4 to see who your arrow hits.
That's perfect.
How's that? Yeah, cool.
18 on the die, so a definite hit. This is a short boy, I assume.
Okay, so you maybe like put a left hand on your sister's shoulder and your feet on the rump of the mare and spring kind of upright and haul the bow up and like fire in that like up on the back of the saddle stance over the top of your sister. At that moment when the horse is like in flight galloping off the ground, you see Elrid, the gleam almost of his like golden nose ring beyond menacing across the line. You let your arrow fly and then like bounce back down to the saddle and then back up again, and you see the arrow kind of dip and wing him and he like spins about on the barricade, nearly falling from it. What's the damage?
Oh, maybe 10.
Oh, glorious.
Nice. He'll like howl in exultation and like blood frenzy now as well, just like howling like a maniac.
The man with the white disc set into his forehead, the gaunt dark man like next to him, will turn and raise his hand. Black nails are like outstretched, begin murmuring. I guess that might not be noticed by you guys beyond, but so he acts, standing next to Elrid, almost kind of standing in front of him and interposing himself between his master and the enemy, and mumbles some foul incantation. From the line, a man stands up, hearing the the trio howl of the wolves, and adds an unnatural fourth like call to your own, unsettling and grisly, and from where you like force the mare on, Sanai, like head down and just like thundering towards. You can see he like stands up amongst his peers on the barricade, and his hands extend, and great claws kind of seem to protrude out, as thick as fingers and as sharp as knives. And his face begins to twist and contort, his beard kind of seeming to spiral and twist. And from sharpening teeth, he gives a wolfish cry as well. And readies himself for the impact that will surely come. Qadan, you've climbed down the inside of the ridge and can see the three columns of riders forming up now into one solid line as they cross the no man's land between the flaming barricade and the second line. And there's a whoop and cheer from the archers about you who have survived thus far as they see their comrades thundering past in the Dalat favoured style, or the Chugan favoured style of a cavalry offensive. A few even move forward and like take aim at the barricade beyond, though with a quick glare from you, they'll relax their bow and like finish forming up as the rest of those lag, like climbing down the ridge, move about you. Tarbur and his men, you can see them rushing off on foot, following the cavalry in their charge towards the enemy.
Loose formation. Wait until the enemy are engaged, and again, make every arrow count. Aim for underneath the arm, or any exposed neck, or gaps in the armor. Do not just fire blindly. Wait for your moment, and then release. I say, moving forward and readying an arrow. Basically, he'd like to get the guy with a plaque on his forehead, but the first enemy that is within 5 feet of within 5 feet of one of his allies, he'll loose his arrow at that.
Okay, he's going to move, dash, and then ready in action.
Do I need to? Yes, I'll move, dash, and ready in action.
Cool.
If that's all right.
And that just to clarify, the trigger is when one of your allies is engaged within 5 feet of an enemy, you'll fire at that enemy.
Yep. Whoever
Cool.
it is.
Excellent. After Qadan, Al-Rid, he'll grimace, pull free his curved saber, and call to his men to ready a charge. And clutching one hand at the arrow, one hand at the saber, he'll just take the dodge action and try and be wary of incoming missiles to when the cavalry hit. That's all for Al-Rid. Sanai, you're the next to act.
And how close is the horse to things? She would be kind of turning towards Chulun, asking for where he wished her to ride, if he needed her to let him down. But for now, I don't think they can get all the way there.
Yeah, I imagine you've been galloping through the barricaded pass now towards the enemy here. It'll put you 120 feet from their mock line or wall.
Oh.
Yeah, so she'd call back, Chulun, which way?
I'll read. And he'll point at the man.
Yeah, she'll angle the horse that way towards Alreed.
So you gallop up, closing the distance. Maybe your horse breaks free of the the main kind of Dalat line, and a few other riders too following suit to impetuous, charging forth into the enemy line and quickly closing the distance. That'll put you at the foot of the barricade there in that rough terrain, and will put your horse adjacent to the enemy, yourself and Chulun, 5 and 10 feet respectively. A Reverian cutthroat standing nearby to the man whose claws grow even as he stands howling. He'll bring a spear down and try and drive it into the neck of your horse, Sanai, from the barricade above for 17 on the die.
So I have the mounted combatant feat, and I can make it aim at me instead so that I don't lose the horse.
You see the spear thrust coming and turn about, and rather than hitting your beast in the neck, it hits you through the thigh because it's a 17 on the die.
Mm-hmm.
And it's two-handed, so you'll take 7 piercing damage as agony racks you, spiraling out from a thigh wound. This thrusts the spear and then twists savagely, jerking, and then pulls the leaf tip out again.
Does this trigger my... Sorry.
It does. Certainly does. I'd already forgotten, but yes, it does, sir.
Would I get any advantage or not?
You don't get advantage, but you will get sneak damage if you hit.
Okay, I hit an AC of 14.
14 hits the Reverian cutthroat, who wears hide.
But I've done really badly on the damage. He takes 6.
Okay, nearly bloodying him in one strike. Maybe the arrow takes him nearby to the armpit, but not in that nice sweet spot that you would have been hoping for, Qadan. And when you draw another arrow and look down the shaft to the enemy, you see still the Reveri spearman thrusting at your sister.
The gods are against me today.
That's after him, so it goes back to the top of initiative. Chulun, you speed across the no man's land, and your Sanai brings the mare up against the barricade. Men begin just hurling weapons and missiles down, and a clamor as other faster riders hit their lines as well.
Okay, I'm gonna stand up onto the back of the horse and try and jump from the horse onto the barricade.
Excellent athletics check.
Okay, it's not bad. Sorry, it's the character sheet. It's only a 14.
Yeah, you step up on the rump of the mare and leap over the barricade, across the sharpened stakes, and down into the press of men there, into the midst of the Reverian cutthroat, who's menacing his sister with his spear, and the man you saw who's fur had kind of matted and teeth and claws enlarged, some kind of savage, bestial magic manifesting it on himself. And they stand before Al Reed as protectors, and it's into their midst that you'd leap and crash down.
Yeah, he'll do so. He'll like leap over. Is that a movement or is that my action?
That's a movement.
Okay. And then I'll rush forwards, and I'm going to attack whatever the hell that thing is, because that's how children thinks. Better to kill it than be afraid of it. That's a 17 to hit.
That hits.
It's going to be 3 + 4, 7 damage.
Yeah, you slash down his chest through the matted fur with your scimitar, and blood spurts out red and vital, but he does not fall, just gives like a savage yowl that's like half a man's kind of scream of pain and half a wolf's like a threatening growl.
Nice. The second is a 18 on the die.
Will certainly hit.
And that is going to be 4 and 4. It's 8 bludgeoning.
15.
And then I'll use my I'll spend a key point to do a bonus action to dodge.
Nice. Okay.
So, yeah, run in, slap with the scimitar, smash an elbow into this wolf thing, and then just like get into the defensive stance.
As the rest of the cavalry rumble in behind you, Sane, the man with the white disc set into his forehead, stands aloft from the barricade, incantation complete, and turns his hand into a fist, and then releases it in a threatening manner. Turns your attention behind you, and you see the ground in a 20-foot kind of line just sink away, almost as if instant quicksand had dropped the earth, and this grim trench appears, the cavalry charging in behind you, and there's that horrifying sound of half a dozen horse legs breaking within close time of each other, and then the subsequent screams of the horses and men as they're thrown, some luckily just into the ground, others into the spiked stakes at the foot of this second barricade, impaled or worse. Adds to the clamour, though no few amount of riders burst through or somehow leap or climb over the trench as it appears at the hands of this sorcerer. A cruel grin peels across his face, and then he turns his attention to your brother as he leaps into the melee, cutting, kneeing, biting, and headbutting at his savage warrior nearby. After Chono, it goes to Argon Beastmarked. He looks down at the ruin in his chest wrought by you, Chulun, and will try and bite and claw you. Claw and bite, then grab you by the throat with his claws, but it's a disadvantage, so that's a miss. And then just reach in with his mouth outstretched, more so than a human's can be. But you bat it aside with the handle of your scimitar as Argon Beastmark misses with both attacks. Qadan, you're the next to act.
Qadan is still closing in through the smoke. Fires another arrow. It goes. He aims, waits until he sees the arm raise, sees the weak point, fires it and misses again, and in anger throws away his short bow and starts charging towards the combat.
A riderless horse rushes free of like the dust clouds and sound of slaughter beyond. You can make an animal handling check if you wish to requisition the mount.
Yep, I'll try it. An 11.
But it rushes past you, nostrils flare and withers soaked in blood. You'll have to rush across the no man's land for now towards the slaughter and your fraternal wolves.
I'll howl in frustration. I'm running towards the combat.
Okay, I'll read. Elrid will move in at your rear, Chulun, as you stand contending with Beastmarked. He'll pull the arrow of your brother from his shoulder and set it down to the barricade with a blood trickles from the wound as he moves around to flank. Try and cut you down with coward strikes from behind. He's going to use a multi-attack with his scimitar. Actually, no. He'll use his command and assign 3 allies within 60 feet of him. This will be Argun Beastmarked, Chono, and the Reverian Cutthroat to all make an attack. So the Reverian Cutthroat will strike down with his spear again at your horse, Sano, for a 15 to hit.
Yeah, I think that'll hit.
It's going to take 8 piercing damage. Argun Beastmark will try and claw you, Chulun. He's flanking you now, so it's a straight roll, which is 17 on the die. So you'll take 6 piercing. And Chono gets to strike with his staff at you, Chulun, for a disadvantage, which will be 13, which is a miss. Roll to see if he recharges this, which he does not. And then he'll just stay, providing that flank for Argun on you, Chulun, as melee slaughter unfurls like all about you up the line with those riders who had somehow made it across Chono's trench.
I think y'all lost that.
Yeah, I dropped for a second there. Sorry, I missed basically all of that. 6 piercing damage I will take.
Yeah, basically, Alrid moved forward and used a command to get 3 allies to attack. And one made an attack at Sanai's horse and struck it with a spear. Another for Chono, the guy with the white disc set in his head, to smack his staff into you, but that missed. But Argun Beastmarked clawed you for 6 piercing damage.
Okay, grand.
And that's it, I believe, for Alrid. He'll just stay in the flank with you. Sanai, down below at the foot of the barricade. Behind you, screaming horses and dismounted men strewn all about. Above you is like a melee slaughter that now the odds that you were carrying into the day are left behind in Chono's trench. And an unfair melee plays out above your brother in the nexus of it.
Sarnai lets out her howl and will first strike out at this spearman, the Reverian Cutthroat. It's a non-natural 20 to hit.
It will certainly hit.
But only 6 damage.
Okay.
And for her bonus action, that howl will send her into a rage. And for my movement, could I attempt to mimic Chulun? And
jump up?
Jump up?
It's an athletics check.
Awfully convenient that I'm raging.
Haha.
That's a 17 on the die.
Yeah, it's certainly a success. You can stand up in the saddle and then leap across the like the cart barrier and up onto the platform next to or behind the Reverian spearman.
Yeah, she'll jump behind him, and if she can get close to Chulun, she will.
He is flanked. Got 3 foes on him, so he would have a flank spare. So you can certainly move up alongside him, but that will put him at one side of you and the Reveri spearman at the other.
That's fine.
Okay. After Sanai, the Reverian, he'll turn his attention from the horse now, not threatening, to you, Sanai. Try and drive his spear down, aiming again for your wounded leg, seeing as a weak spot for a 7 on the die, which is going to be a 12. It's not going to hit. So you step aside and cling, knock the spear strike wide. The Reverian curses in his own language, something horrible, no doubt. And Chulun, it is your turn. You hear your sister's war cry. And turn see her in your periphery, even as the foes swarm about you.
Okay. Insanity all around, I guess, at all these strange sort of like warriors and creatures. But he's going to turn towards this guy with the disc on his head and the staff, and he's going to unload a bunch of attacks upon him, hoping to like break the guy's fingers so he can no longer like move them in the ways he needs to do whatever.
Nice. If you crit on this, that's what will be the finger crit.
And Sarna is giving you advantage with pack tactics.
Yes. No crit this time, but still a 17 to hit the wizard, whatever he is, for the first. And then second is more than that, 18. And then I'll
they both hit.
I'll use my flurry of blows to do third. That's a crit now. Okay, so 2 hits and a... Oh, Jesus Christ. 2 hits and a crit. Okay. So the first hit is going to be 4. That's bad. Second hit... Oh, actually, he needs to make a save each time I hit him now because I'm in my flurry of blows mode. So he needs to make a strength save.
He fails.
Glory. Okay, so he's knocked down. Then the second strike will be 8 damage. The third was a crit, and that one will be 3, 2, and 4 is 9 damage for that one.
He's nearly bloodied. He's nearly bloodied from the flurry of blows as you hack, slash, and knee and kick into him. The last one, I imagine he's just like reaches his one hand up in a defensive motion, and you grab it and just swiftly like pull the middle 3 fingers back on his hand, which will deny him the chance to cast spells that have a somatic component.
Yeah, somatic is movement, I think.
Yep.
Sick. Yeah. Glory. So he'll just like...
He's like, not in pain, obviously, at the ruination of his arcane mastery.
Yeah, Shillen will like look down at him and then like just move back next to Sarnai and try and protect her as best he can.
After Chulun, Chono screaming gathers himself for vengeance. Since he can't cast that spell anymore, he's going to grab his staff and hold it aloft and try and strike it down like twice, aiming twice for your head. Do you have a dash on at the moment, Lloyd?
No, not a dodge, no.
Okay, but he's not one of the 2 flanking you, so it's just regular 2 strikes for him. For a miss and a 16, which hits, I believe.
Yeah, that's exactly enough.
For 4 bludgeoning damage, another whack.
Okay.
A crack across the back of the skull, but that's what he's reduced to now, Chono. Beast marked, flanking you, will try and claw and bite thee. For a miss on the claw. And a 14, which is a miss on the bite. So somehow, even as you're recoiling from the strikes of Chono, you can at least bring up the blade to kind of ward off beast-marked Argun for now. Qadan, you're the next to act, crossing the no man's land, running past arrow-strewn corpses, or a few men like in puddles of blood, reaching up with outstretched hands, calling for help, and beyond the battle calls.
How far is Qadan from the battle?
It was 120 feet for Taylor, so I'll say the same for you. So if you moved last turn, that's 60 feet, so you're 60 feet away from the battle.
Okay, with my move and bonus dash, I'll be able to close that. And then
that'll put you at the base of their mock wall, which is an athletics check to leap up over or climb up.
Yeah, I'll just athletics check it. I mean, unless it's 6 foot or less, in which case it's automatic for me.
And it's automatic for you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a climber, and 6 foot is nothing, so I just sort of Jackie Chan over up to the top, and if I can, and is the sorcerer still on the floor, or has he got up?
He acted after Chulun, so he would have had to stand on his turn. So he's standing now. You can see to your right, down like the platform where the melee is taking place, the spearman like menacing Sanai, and beyond your brother flanked by the treacherous Al Reed and this beast-marked man. And beyond from them, but adjacent to Chulun, is Chono. And he's like on the opposite side of that melee I described from where you are. So and off to your left is like 2 few Dalat riders leaping up over the ramparts to engage the prepared brigands. You can see the work of Chono's trench.
which ones are being sort of distracted by Sarnai's rage?
That would be the Reverian spearman who stabbed her horse. He has his back to you and has been trying to stab at Sarnai's wounded leg.
Okay, I'll just go and stab him with my scimitar for a crit. So this is gonna
Hurt.
I do 9, 13, just 16.
16. 6 is 22. He's very badly bloodied, nearly slain. Can I get a d20 from you, please, sir?
Yep, that's I get a 1. I don't know if that's good or bad.
Good or really bad. Oh, you stab him through the kidney, through the back, through the kidney, screams like a stuck pig. He will get a festering wound from that and have his max P reduced 1 every 24 hours until he dies, which is probably going to be less than a day anyway. But that's the crit, a festering wound, like a gut wound. He just screams, clutching at his back with one hand, whirling about, distracting from Sarnai now and turning his like pain-filled rage upon you, Qadan.
The Sky Father delivered that one.
Nice. I'll read. Let's see. Didn't recharge his command, so he's just going to multi-attack you, my lord, with the flank. Twice with his saber. Here goes nothing. For 17 on the die for the first, and 14 on the die for the second. It's going to be 2 hits. So maybe Chulun's, like many minor wounds over the course of the battle, have just started to catch up with him, and strength unknown has seeped from him. He discovers this when he rings up his saber to match that of Alreed's, and 2 quick slashes score across your forearm first and belly for the second. You're going to take 13 slashing damage all up.
Oh, shit. Okay, I'm down.
And he just like cuts you down. You're still conscious, like looking down as these 2 brutal strikes have like hammered you down to the platform. And he looms forward, pointing his blade to the chin for the coup de grace. Sarnai, you're next to act.
Sarnai lets out her wolf howl, seeing Chulun fall to his knees like this. She has seen Qadan appear, but she turns her attention back to Alreed, and knowing that they're surrounded anyways, she throws caution to the wind. She's going to attack him recklessly. 16 on the die. And
16 hits Alreed.
That's going to be not great. Hang on, let me maths. Sorry. Only 6 damage.
6 damage. He's already taken 10. That puts him on 16, which bloodies him. So maybe he's like reaching up with the blade to like drive it through a dazed Chulun's throat, when out of the side, whack, your own blade strikes into him, and he screams in pain, nearly doubling over, bloodied now but not vanquished, and his attention at least distracted from your wounded brother to yourself.
Sarnai will stand, putting herself as best she can between any of these dangers, and Chulun almost pivoting, looking between Alreed and this beast man.
The Reverian, howling in pain, will turn about and try and gut you with his spear, Qadan, for 12. You're nimble and unharmed as yet, apart from that slash on your hand. So you dodge aside nimbly, and the spear thrust is ineffective. Then it goes back to Chulun. Death save, please, sir.
Okay, here we go. 14.
Nice. Yeah, like vision is fading in and out, and sounds are kind of muddying into each other like oil and water at the moment, as you can see flashes with your eyelids kind of shut like cinema curtains and then slowly reopen as Sarnai battles this moon-disked man and Alreed and a wolf and wolves and wolves. Chono is next to act. cannot cast his spell, so he'll just try and strike with his staff. He has advantage on you, right, Sanai?
Yeah, I think
What?
both
Because you're reckless.
and the reckless.
You were reckless. Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They were
it's going to be
hit me.
it's going to be a hit and a miss. You'll take 4 bludgeoning damage. The Moon Disc Man will like wade in, step over like the fallen body of Chulun, and just like raise the staff up and try and butt it into your jaw twice. You dodge the first, but the second collects and nearly sends you to your knees, Sanai. After Chono, Agron Beastmarked will turn and use his movement to flank with Al Reed to flank you, Sanai. Attack with advantage, which he gets advantage anyway, but bit of flank for two natural ones with the claw, and a natural 1 and a 30 on the die for the bite. So that will be 18 to hit on the bite, which will hit Sanai. You'll take 4 piercing damage, and I'm going to say for the natural 1 that you slashed off one of his wolf fingers. The digits like ah!
Yeah, I think Sarnai it turns as he's reaching out for with that claw and gets one off, but then is slightly off balance when he comes at her with a bite. Not expecting it from a man.
Qadan, you see this beyond through like the looming stoop of the Reverian spearman as he tries to gut you. He blocks your passage to rescuing your fallen brother and sister. What do you do?
I've got to finish him off first, so I hit him AC 22 for
Certainly.
Without 16 points damage.
That well
I
and truly
quickly,
does it.
efficiently just stab him through the heart, and as he falls, I'm running round to flank Abu Al-Rim.
Nice. After Qadan, it will be Al-Rid himself. What would he do? Deal with the new threat or the wounded Sanai? I think what he will do, seeing the numbers, will dodge. And he'll kind of move, like one hand kind of trying to fend off Sanai and the other menacing you with his blade. Qadan?
Mm-hmm.
That will be Al-Rid. Slay them, he's calling more frantically now to Chono. Cast sorcery upon them! And Chono just kind of grimaces and tries to thwack down with his staff. Sana, you're the next to act.
Sarnai turns her attention to this beast man who is here and strikes out at him. Well, 18 on the die for that one.
It's Al-Rid?
No, the beast man.
Oh, okay, yeah, that hits him easy. He's got no armor.
And that's 10 damage.
25 out of 27. Yeah, you stab him through the side. When you pull the blade out, hot sheets of blood run over to mingle with the others, and he nearly falls to his knees, slain. He's very close to death. I'm going to roll a morale check for Argon, and his bestial flight instinct kicks in. He is the frightened condition. But he is not slain.
With delight at the blood and the sight of the fear on his face, she can recognize that primal emotion.
Yeah, almost instinctually, he's like summoned up to respond, but as he goes to like call out a howl, it's just like blood that spills over his mouth and broken teeth. He's a man very close to death and full of fear at the prospect of whatever afterlife lies in wait for him. After Sanai, the Reverian cutthroat just looks down at so many of his belly eels as they wriggle free,
He's
along
dead.
with the last of his life. Yeah, he dies. And Chulun, death save, please, sir.
16.
Chano.
See all around, and he's like almost losing it, and he's like trying to breathe. Yeah, he's just struggling. He's probably never been like this before, like this close to the end. And he thinks, at least I'll tell good stories.
Chono will move from where he was, had been flanking with Chulon, I believe, flanking off Chulon, to move around to flank you, Qadan, with Al Reed.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to thwack you over the back of the head with his staff for a miss. And 18 to hit, which
He gets 2 attacks, though he's a sorcerer.
Yeah, yeah, he is actually a reskinned Claw of Luthic.
Okay,
yep.
The second one hits.
4 bludgeoning damage.
Damn it. Okay.
That's it for Chono. So Argun, beast marked, nearly slain and frightened, will try and lash out with his wounded claw and bite at you, Sane. He has advantage from the flank, but he's frightened, so it's just straight rolls for a miss on the claw and a miss on the bite. Qadan, you're the next to act.
Sarnai yips as a taunt as he misses.
Have you missed me?
I just said Qadan's turn. My mic might have cut out though. Yep, you're after Argun.
Okay. Yep. Qadan says, "You have blasphemed against the Sky Father, and we are the triple throng Knaut sent to whip your evil hides." And I grab out at Abu Al Rim as he's trying to wave me off with his dagger. I try and dodge out of the way and grab his hands and twist it into a grappling hold, and I get
nice 15 is the DC.
I get a 22. So I twist him and then not bothering. How far away is the oasis?
You can see it looking over to your right, past a couple of campfires and carts, like stores of weapons and boxes and such. There's like this pebbled kind of shore, and then clear waters beyond of this like aquamarine, like oasis, kind of like nestled in, protected by the ridges around that give it its name.
How far is it from us? From
you, no more than 60 feet from the other side of where the barricade, like this second barricade that you stand aloft is.
Okay, I'm not going to take the disengage. I'm just going to, having grabbed Abu Dalim, I'm going into a dash towards the barricade, dragging him with me. I can only move 30 feet because I'm dragging him, but I've dragged him halfway towards the oasis.
And that will provoke an opportunity attack from Chono.
Yep.
Which misses. You drag Abu, screaming from the pain of his like twisted fingers, and then like also like grunting and trying to get free of your grasp as you dragging him for the water. For what I'm sure he can surmise will be quite the struggle. But for now, he resists. He'll try and break. Would he? I think he'll just try and like hack down at you with his saber while you're dragging him along.
Okay.
I imagine you're behind him, like dragging him from behind, so he'll just stab down, like sword backhanded, aiming for your right thigh, the meat of your right thigh, twice, for a 14 on the die, which will be a hit and a miss.
Okay.
9 slashing damage.
Okay.
And then it will be Sarnai.
Sarnai, with a wolfish grin, turns to this beast man who has not hit her recently. He seems afraid, unwilling to engage with her. It's going to be 18 to hit.
A certain hit.
8 damage.
Describe his demise.
She growls at him and lunges forward, but it's a feint. And as he pulls away from her face and her teeth, she stabs up through the gut with her sword.
Screams blood and just falls free down onto the deck with the others. Before you can see Chono standing over Chulun, and to your left, away from the barricade, and men struggling. You can see your younger brother skull dragging Al Reed towards the oasis. What do you do?
She
There's still the
turns
sorcerer there, isn't there?
and pivots to
Yeah,
interpose
that's
herself
Chono.
between Cholun and this man with the disc upon his forehead, and she gives him a wolfish smile.
Chulon, death save.
Uh, 14. So he's stable, but yeah, I guess he'll like fall into unconsciousness from like blood loss from all the tiny little wounds that he's taken, and some of the more significant ones too. And he'll like, I guess his eyes will roll back in his head. Yeah, he's just exhausted and near death, but I think hopefully he'll live.
Chono turns to face you, Sanai, and cannot do spells for his broken finger, and so we'll just try and strike once with the butt of his staff at your wounded thigh, and then with the top part of the staff overhead, like down into the back of your head, presumably if he hits with the first, but he doesn't for a miss. On the second, a 16 to hit, which I'm sure hits Sanai.
Yeah, that will hit.
6 bludgeoning damage. Crack.
Yeah, there's a thud and a bruise will form, but Sarnai scarcely seems to notice it.
I think he'll stay where he is, engaged in melee without his magic. Beast Marked just dies. Qadan, it's your turn. Looking over your shoulder, you can see the cool, calm, peaceful, ideal oasis. And then looking back over the shoulder of your captive, you can see a scene of horror and smoke and fire and screams. What do you do?
We're heading for the cool calm of the oasis, whether he likes it or not. I'm going into a dash mode, so I'm moving, dragging him a full 45 feet, which is 15 feet into the oasis, and then falling prone, dragging him with me. Underwater, I'll take a deep breath as I'm going down, and hopefully I'll be able to last longer than him.
Nice. I like it.
No more commanding from him.
I'm going to let you make because it's a movement and bonus for you to get into the water, right? You've still got your action, and you're essentially trying to drown him.
I was taking my action to move the full 45. I mean, I could get to
so he's well
to 30,
submerged.
but yeah, to get an extra 15 feet in to get fully submerged.
Excellent. I love it. After Qadan, Elrid himself, for a bonus action, he will reach up and touch his nose ring, and the skin that you grab like around your hands begins to harden, and his weight increases, and you can see through like the clear water of the oasis now that you're underneath it with him, as he like trying to twist free of the grab, that his skin slowly begins to spread and have this stony film about it, even up over his face and nostrils and eyes, and they close over grey, but still moves with the human frenetic violence, trying to break free, and he will try and break free down here. So oppose your athletics. DC is 18 this time.
Okay. And mine is 22.
And so he tries to struggle free, given his new mass and strength, but your stone is like iron. Your grip is like iron on stone, and you contend underneath the swishing waters. And too much, he's like bubbles of air escape from his mouth in the underwater as you squeeze and pull and hold him down for now. I'm going to say, since you're actively drowning him, you can do your strength modifier damage as part of that, Caius.
It's +2.
2 damage, bludgeoning 12 red. He's bloodied. After Alrid, Sana, you're next.
Sarnai steps toward Chono, and she swings for his throat. 16 to hit.
16 hits.
9 damage.
9. Yeah, he holds the staff with one hand, and with the other, like polished nails, reaches up to try and like stem the blood from his throat as it squirts free. He coughs and kind of nearly stumbles aback. He's quite badly wounded, but not vanquished, and not frightened by the she-wolf. Assume you're going to stay there and defend Chulun to your last drop of blood.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Chono will take his bloody hand and just with like a violent kind of baseball bat swing with his staff, try and lash out twice. Are you attacking recklessly then?
I was not.
Okay. For a miss, and a natural one again. He like stumbles free as you like pivot and like goes too far, and the staff like clatters down into the blood slick cart platform, and he'll double over and like scramble for it.
And like throw it to the side and wrest it from his grasp.
Sure. Make an opposed acrobatics check. DC 14.
12.
Yeah, you go for it at the same time he does, but he's quick despite his age and gangliness, and he swiftly like pulls back the staff into his grasp. A desperate look coming over him now as those who had been like dismounted or thrown have begun to like stand up, form up, and rush up into the barricade to try and push through. And probably behind, looking over your shoulder, he can see several of the brigands like either running towards the caves or to two of the other narrow passes that the enemy did not pour in from. And that fear of like rout begins to ripple through him and others, Sane, as you read his face. Chulun swoons in and out of unconsciousness and sees the wolf battling the mountain. Chono, he'll disengage from you, Sane, and he will move down from the platform and try and steal your wounded horse. So make an athletics check. Try and get down there. 16 on the die. So like leaps down, scrambles into the saddle, and will begin to try and flee. Qadan, underwater.
Underwater, I still gripping his arm, pinning him underwater. I pull out my dagger and try slipping it in through his ribs for hit an AC of 23 for
that hits it.
13 points damage with my sneak.
Okay. So mechanically that only does 6. So I imagine like rather than like it's slipping in beneath the ribs that you find, the blade still feels like it's almost pushing through hardened clay.
Right.
It takes quite a bit of force. But when you pull the blade out, you can see this cloud or plume of red billowing out into the pristine water, and he struggles all the more violently now.
But it's hard to penetrate this thing. Okay, with my fast hands as well, I can interact with an object. I'll look around and see if there's any roots. I'll feel around and see if there's any roots or anything sort of like that at the bottom of this oasis.
I think there would be. I think there definitely would be.
Then I'll, with my fast hands as a bonus action, I'll try and tie it round his belt, tie him underwater.
Okay, give me an acrobatics check, and it'll be opposed by him as he struggles with you. And if you succeed, you'll have advantage, or he'll have disadvantage on his next attempt to break free. Your DC is 13.
Acrobatics, you say? No, get a 12.
Maybe as you like reach out for like some gnarled roots at the bottom of the water, like there's an errant elbow from him drives into your jaw and sends the world spiraling, and you just have to like manage to grip onto him so that he doesn't wriggle free and cannot grab the roots for now. Okay. Alrid, still feeling the pain even as you pillage his stony skin. I don't think you would try and hack and slash in this situation when you're this close to Earth. I think you would try and get free. So he's going to try and break grasp of you and swim to the surface. Your DC is 21.
Oh, I only get a 19 this time.
So maybe that jaw sends your vision spiraling for a moment, and your grip loosens enough from his stony skin that he can begin to like kick and burst free for the surface with a and like his blood puming out from beneath him about the water. And he'll try and like breaststroke as fast as he can away from you. That will provoke an opportunity of attack from you because you have a melee weapon and it's piercing and you're underwater, so it's still just a regular attack.
Okay. I hit him, an AC of 21 anyway, I'm guessing. But
certainly hits.
It's just 4 points of damage because I don't have sneak on this, do
I? He's not grappled, so you don't. That will put here 2 more points of damage. This is not quite enough. But you put him 15 feet into the water, so it'll take his full movement to get to the shore, but still be in the water. But free of the grapple is Al Reed. And yeah, now as he breaches the water, you can see his whole body now is encased in the stony spell. Sanai, up on the bloody platform, you're the next to act. To your right, you see from where Qadan had disappeared under the water, just the bloody Al Reed, now skin of stone, striding free from the water, and no sign of your youngest brother. And as you look to your left, you see Chono, the sorcerer, galloping on your wounded horse away from the melee and the battle that is lost as Tarbur and his infantry from the barricade now arrive to reinforce the cavalry where they have struck about you, and the tide is turned.
She picks up a dropped spear and hurls it towards Chono, but the horse is faster and she is growing tired. But she instead turns and moves towards Al Reed, and I will come up and engage him. I don't think I can attack at this point, but she will get in range of him, kind of trying to grab at him with one hand, while simultaneously looking over his shoulder for any sign of Qadan.
Just ripples in the bloody water. For now, you can use your movement and action to get adjacent to Al Reed if that's your intent from the fighting platform.
Yeah, my action was to throw the spear, but I missed.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were saying that in fluff. I didn't realize. Okay, cool. So that'll get you 30 feet from Al Reed.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Okay. Qadan, sorry, that was Sanai. Chulun swoons still. Chono rides free. Qadan, you're underwater. The vision is clawing here as your blood mingles with that of your quarry, and he frees himself from your grasp.
Yep, I strike out for the surface, see where he is, and see that he's engaged with Sanai, and just close in to flank him and try and finish him off. But I slash out with my dagger again. I'm guessing a 15 misses.
Yeah, it just scrapes off his stony exterior with a and he turns his attention from the approaching she-wolf to the curious one.
And having, let's see, I've moved 15 feet to 30 feet.
Yep, swam up 15 feet and then waded 15 feet up to be adjacent to him.
Yep, I'll... that's all I'll do. That's all I'll do. I won't take a bonus action.
Okay. After Qadan, it's Al Reed. Since you scraped your blade across his skin, he'll turn about and try and decapitate you with the saber. That will be a miss. And then he'll strike out again, this time with 2 hands, for a 19 on the die, which will be a hit. 7 slashing damage.
Oh, bleeding heavily. He drops to a knee, but stands up again.
And seeing Sanai approach, and you at his heels and not dead from this, he'll break into a run, running away from Sanai and yourself, provoking an opportunity of attack from you.
From both of us?
No, Sanai couldn't reach him.
Oh, she couldn't.
Was 30 feet from him.
Oh. Okay, let's see. 20.
That hits.
For 5 points damage.
That's enough. But if you would have got a 2, it wouldn't have been enough because of his stony skin. Describe his demise.
Yeah, just I'm sort of staggering around, but as he turns, I make one last lunge and lose balance myself, but my dagger catches into his ribs, and just you hear a breaking rib, and blood starts just sort of spurting from a deep. It obviously pierces his heart because there's just this plume of blood comes spurting out, rhythmically getting less and less. With
Yeah,
each.
and he's wholly flesh again from the stone before as he hits the ground and just gives a as he looks at the sand and loses his vision. Looking up, you can see brigands being driven from the ramparts, like thrown down and brutalized by the Dalats as they wash over the carts and into the camp itself.
Chase down the other profaner, sister. Show him how we take and ride.
If that's your intent, you two, to chase down this sorcerer as he flees the massacre now at Horseshoe Oasis, or require contested animal handling checks for you guys to catch and engage him.
15 for me.
And 8 for me.
By the time you get to horses and ride out the narrow passes, now strewn with corpses as Dalites have rushed through there, you can see a figure in the distance letting up a plume of dust as they speed away from the oasis. But his horse skill exceeded that of Sanai, and the quarry grows distant, even though the victory behind grows more apparent.
Yeah, if it seems that he is too swift for them, even on a badly wounded horse, Sarnai will wheel her mount around and return back towards Chulun to find him.
Yeah, you can find him. He appears dead as the two men next to him as they kind of lounged up amongst each other. But at closer inspection, he breathes still, and his eyes flicker open as you kneel beside him, though there's no kind of recognition on his like unconscious face as he kind of groans and slumps back. But he's more fortunate than the others who can't even groan nearby to him. So many slain. Their screams, though, or moans, is drowned out by the cry of joy of victory of the living and unwounded, as like bloodied weapons are raised and shouts of victory go up, and as the old women and men, the wounded and sick, and Teneka and the children and Ulun ride in as the last wave, picking up arrows and looting the dead. All the Dalat people together celebrate at the bloody Horseshoe Oasis. And then the grim task of moving through the wounded and picking off the brigands and seeing what of the Dalats can be saved, and the sawing of bones and stitching of wounds and setting of fractures, and the grim reality of the aftermath of the battle. There is no celebration, so hot on the heels of so much death and maiming. And the grim work is set to, even before it is mid-morning, the Battle of the Horseshoe Oasis. And that's where we'll take a bio break, guys. Well played.
Sounds good.
Ooh.
We lived.
I am shocked we lived. But I gotta say, Barbarian taking half damage is so useful.
Listen, you don't get to become the big Khan by taking it nice and careful. You got to take a risk and be a hero, you know?
And have those pack tactics.
Yeah. All right, back in a sec.
Oof.
Dibs on that ring.
Go for it.
I can't wear armor or use weapons, so
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. I was figuring you'd probably be the one to take it.
We've got to hand it over to Teneka, and he's got to decide who it goes to.
true.
He's the Khan.
Yeah, good luck talking Chilun out of that.
Oh wow, it's really, really powerful. Stone skin is a bonus action once per day. That's resistance to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. Oh boy, give me that.
You would be unstoppable.
Yeah.
So Chulun. Oh, sorry, you go.
No, you go.
Chulun, you groggily awaken, and the haze of sound coalesces into that of like moaning, crying, screaming, pleading. And as you strain yourself and cause pain, looking about from side to side, you can see you lay on a fur in the sand. It's sometime afternoon. It's quite hot. There's a movement all about you. Women carrying buckets and linens soaked with oasis water and tending to the many wounded about you. One man is screaming wetly as his family are gathered around him and can do nothing as he dies. You can hear the bone rattling shaman singing his songs amongst the wounded and fixing what he can and praying for the slain that he cannot help but send them on their way. Teneka's face forms into view over you. You did your best, brother, but she did not die.
The others, are they okay?
They live. They live. Qadan and Sanai are wounded, but they fought like wolves, and they live even now. They chase the prey beyond the horseshoe ridge.
I'll try to go stand up, but then double over in pain and lie back down.
Cannot. You are too badly wounded. The wounded wolf's the dead one. Stay and lick your wounds. They'll be back. They always come back. They killed Al Reed, Qadan and Sanai. They butchered him by the oasis. From what they say, you pulled down that barricade single-handedly, untouched by flame and fear. The Dalat sing your praises. I think it masks their fear of the wolves.
Wasn't quite single-handedly, but I like that they say so. And yes, I think that we should move on sooner than later. We're starting to outshine them too often.
Ulun exults in his victory, but at the cost of so many avoidable deaths. Would that I could have been alongside you, brother. I'll carry that shame forever, but I will pay it back to you. And this, from the man who tried to cut you down, who nearly took your arm. He gestures at the sling and bindings there. But with your good hand, you can receive this thick, shining gold ring. Pulled from the rascal's nose.
Yeah, he'll grin, not knowing what it is, but it's gold, and that's something. He knows that's valuable. Thank you. You'll be there next time. I know that.
They say that there will be a dirge tonight for the slain, and they'll be put up, hung in the ridges about this place. They can drink long in the afterlife. Then Ulun wishes to bestow gifts and thanks upon us. But thereafter, I agree. We should leave this place. It's not for wolves.
No, we should. And we should keep our wits about us too. If I was Ulun and I knew that there were 4 dangerous wolves about to be set free, and they were injured, now would be the time.
He gives a nod. It reminds you of father for a moment. But your father wouldn't say what he says thereafter, that he'll go now and see to some of the other wounded, and he'll let you know. should Qadan and Sanai, or when Sanai and Qadan return. For now, brother, rest. And imagine you fall back to unconsciousness with that ring gripped in your good hand. It's long into the afternoon in the plains, following the pony's blood trail, Sanai, till you spot Qadan together in the distance, huddled forms. As you approach, you can see in a pool of blood a horse ridden down to its own death, and nearby a smaller form of the moon-disked Chono. As he looks up from like his muck and bloody mire kind of scrabbles across the sands, bloody robes kind of lagging and dragging behind him, and he tries twice like a drunk man stumbling to rise, but the pain of his wounds and so much blood loss sees him collapse down into the whirling and wisping sands about. It's hot, and even here you can smell his rankness and his fear. And he gestures at you with one hand that doesn't clasp his bloody staff, working his fingers in intricate motions that cause winces and grimaces of agony across his face. And despite his words, he flings no spells at you as you dismount and approach. Begone, devil wolves. Feel your blood elsewhere. I'll not go easy.
Sarnai.
Qadan.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Qadan falls in behind his older sister and waits to see what she decides to do.
Sarnai will unsheath her weapon from where it's hung at her side, and she will step forward, looking to Qadan.
Qadan is just watching you, but gives a little nod in support, a nervous smile.
We hunt the weak, the wounded, the sick. You and your unnatural powers. The Skyfather will not abide it. And with Qadan at
coughs
her
a
side,
bloody response and feebly tries to rise at you.
yeah, with Qadan at her side, she will unflinchingly murder this man.
Make a wisdom save.
Both of us?
Ooh.
No, just Sanai as she moves forward to murder him.
That is 15.
He grabs you with his broke-fingered grasp and goes to bestow a curse upon you, but the sword cuts his head off where like the jaw meets, and so just like his neck exposed and tongue and bottom jaw are left there to spurt a moment before he collapses in the sand, 3/4 decapitated and curse unspoken.
Ooh, that was close. I don't think Sarnai would know how close that was, but she feels a twinge of nausea at the proximity to this man.
Qadan sinks down to his knees and is just sort of looking quite weak suddenly. He's held it together until now, but he's now looking weak and unsure of himself and just breathing heavily, looking down at the floor. Well done. Do you think we've lifted the curse on the oasis that these outlanders brought? Did you feel it yourself?
I did.
I was telling them not to waste their arrows, and I missed with most of mine.
You never miss.
I could not find a mark today.
Sarnai limps over to you. The wound in her thigh, not bleeding as heavily now. Qadan, you do not look well.
He stands up and starts sort of smoothing himself down. I'm not a boy, I'm a man, he says. But he doesn't sound very like one at the moment.
And I will still be your older sister when you are an old man.
I know. You'll always be my older sister. You'll always point out to everybody when I say something wise, you'll just point out anything that's wrong in it.
Well, I couldn't just point out the good things. Your head would get too big.
What about the other survivors? We need a tribe. We are outcasts. Shall we collect some outcasts and make our own tribe?
No. Not of these.
They may well be cursed. They took over. They are not outlanders. They should have known what they were doing, taking over an oasis. Maybe they would be the wrong ones, but we do need to form a tribe.
The 4 of us is enough. For now.
We need to capture goats. It's not enough just to kill. You need to be able to gain wealth of goats and horses. That's what. No tribe can. It doesn't matter how well you can kill. You can't kill off winter. Winter is the raider of the Sky Father, and it always claims its victims. It never leaves a raid without some lives. Every tribe weakens, and the only way to get stronger is to have enough food in your bellies, enough goats in your tribe to survive the winter. We've been taken in by the Dalat, but we can't just wander around on our own. We need goats. We need something to sustain us.
Then perhaps when we leave, the Dalat will give us some. We have earned it.
Are we leaving the Dalat?
They are not our people. Why would we stay?
Because it is winter and they are a tribe. We should stay with them until spring.
We will see what Teneka says. I am uncertain. I do not. This is not home. These are not our people. They are not our ways.
No. But I do not want to travel alone during winter. There is food here.
She'll reach out and kind of ruffle his hair. Like you'd ever be alone. Come.
We better go back because Tanaka, he's like an old woman and frets over us so much all the time.
Oh, does he?
You may not have noticed it, but I observe him more carefully than you do, sister.
And I'm sure he speaks so much to you.
We have chats while you snore.
I don't snore.
No, of course not. Anyway.
So you guys will leave? The slain horse and the slain sorcerer for the sand.
I'll cut out the disc on his forehead as a memento. And actually, no, we are too young. Then I'll take the meat off the horse and salt it, and you can't. It's winter, and you can't waste so much stuff. I'll skin it, and take everything we can, and then head back.
Yeah, you cut off 2 haunches, the horse that'll still be good and that you'd be able to carry and lash to your own. The man has fine boots, though his clothes are like torn and blood-soaked and doesn't have any real armor to speak of. That's practical. He does have coins that I don't know if like the Nikon would value, but certainly realms either side of the Hordelands do. This man carries 23 of the strange tokens. I'm not sure if you know what they are. They're circular, but have a square hole in the center. He also has a fine black wood staff that he used to smote down Chulun.
Sarnai would take the staff, and when her hand touches it, it feels wrong.
Like picking up a stone that's covered in dirt, and then your hands are cut dirty with dirt from picking up the heavy stone.
She will stand on her good leg and break it across her knee, and in several pieces, and take one of the middle ones with her to be tossed elsewhere.
Qadan will take the boots.
They're a bit big, but you'll grow into them.
And he'll be very. He's happy with big things, and he'll stuff other cloths down into his boots to try and keep them on, and he'll go clumping around in them. Probably
So it's
giving
pretty late.
Advantage with stealth.
It's probably pretty late in the afternoon when you guys return to the Horseshoe Oasis, and you can see trains of people moving out from the passes, carrying the slain enemy and scattering their parts well away from the oasis to not filth it and to not have their dead linger and mingle amongst the valiant slain of your own friendly host. Those bodies being taken up to the highest parts of the ridge, including the one that you descended to earlier this morning, Qadan, to be placed closest to the Skyfather to expedite their journey to the next world. And there's the weeping of family and lamentations as you trot back into the camp here. You can see where many gers have been set up that housing the wounded, and then away from that, the whole and healthy and the families who are, the bulk of them now have come into inhabit this oasis, at least till the aftermath is completed, and then we'll presumably move on from here. As the first oil torches are being kind of placed out about the camp, you guys would find Teneka and Chulun both amongst the wounded, and it's a horrifying, unsettling place to be amongst the dying and the badly injured, with so little medical craft to give out, but songs and sparse unguents. That your horses will slake their thirst from the clear waters of the oasis, and kind of earth has been thrown up to avoid the sheets of blood from all the dead to mingle and poison the precious oasis. And there's grim nods, sad ones, teary, ashen-faced ones, but also ones of friendship and admiration and respect, even amongst some older of the warriors, as you guys ride back into the camp and reconvene with your elder brothers.
Chulun, you wake.
I woke up ages ago. I'm fine. Don't worry about it.
And I shall tell the snow not to be cold and the water not to be wet while I'm at it.
He squints at that, not sure what that means, and then shrugs. Yeah, you should. Did you kill the wizard?
Sarnai cut off his head.
He'd nod at that, sort of grim. Good.
And I got his boots, he says, clumping around.
They're too big for you.
It won't be soon.
Maybe in another 4 winters.
Pah. I'll be bigger than Chulun in 2.
We'll see. I've got a head start on you.
At that, you hear Altani call, Nikon, as she walks close towards you, pulling her horse by the bridle. She hasn't changed out of her war clothes yet, and by like the worn look on her face, looks like she's been busy much in the aftermath with the scattering of dead, or like seeing to the many things necessary for her brother's Khanate to kind of just camp here.
Qadan spins round and faces her, trying to look impressive in his boots.
Blood Wolves, Battle Wolves, it's good to see you all together and that you are well, Chulun. And it's like that comment is too curt and too short, you would notice if you were interested. My brother wishes to have you attend him as the night falls. He'll feast you in his very own gur amongst the honoured.
Well, that seems proper. We did win a battle.
Indeed, she says, rankling a little. But you must change from bloody and muddy garb to sit in my brother's honoured gur. Tarbur behind her kind of gives her a begrudging look, and she moves forward and says, "My thanks. Without you, my riders, well, thank you, Chulun of the Nikon." But it's awkward for her to say this, and then her brother over her shoulder relaxes at that.
Yeah, Children doesn't really know what to say. He'll just look and nod. Of course, we're glad to help our allies.
Tell me if there's anything more that can be done for you, and we'll see to it. But otherwise, we'll see you this evening.
He'll look around to the others. There's nothing that he needs, but he'll see if they want anything.
And she'll nod and lead her horse away. Oh, sorry, you go.
Yeah, they're just like the little head shake of, nope, I'm good.
And Teneka will go off to some smaller part of the oasis to bathe and see to his wounds and prepare himself. You guys are free to do as you will. And if there's anything you wanted to do before we move on, just let me know.
Qadan will spend the afternoon making himself look fantastic. As a young teenager only can. He'll find all the perfume or all the sort of anything that he thinks will impress and put too much of it on.
Children will find some clothes that aren't ruined and bloody, and he'll put on that ring, but that'll be it. And he'll chuckle when he sees Qadan, smells rather, Qadan coming back. But he won't make fun of him. He'll just look at him and put a hand on his shoulder. You're looking well.
I'm a man now. I've killed real warriors.
Yeah, Children will nod. More than that, though, to become a man. It takes a little bit of time, but you're getting there. When you fit in those boots, maybe.
He looks a bit crestfallen.
You're still more man than most of these little cats. And he'll make a meow.
So you guys are ushered amongst the healthy warriors to the Khan's Gur and stripped of weapons and admitted on an entrance. Sat in there. There's the grey-haired, half-mad crone that Ulun fawns over, and Altani and Tarbur flank him. There's hot platters of lamb and goat and stores of arag and other sweeter things from the west, pillaged from Al-Rid's camp, amongst other finery like cutlery and minerals and just other knickknacks that the Khanate people might not usually enjoy possessing. And Ulun looks up from feeding his crone grandmother with like a wooden spoon out of like a silver dish. Please come in, honoured Nikon friends. And he actually rises, which is a sign of great respect for a Khan to do in his own gur before at people who are being admitted. It shows that he thinks of you as equal as far as like the society goes, not like submissive to him. Please come in, be seated, fill your bellies with goat and drink what you desire from my mat. You have the thanks of my people. All the Dalat owe you, children of Yargai, the debt bound in war. I would like to repay ways of it if I can. He'll gesture for Tarbur to bring forward this suit of shining steel. It's like throat to thigh chain shirt, finely crafted, nothing of like the Hordeland peoples make. This is a shirt of steel from the Xiao people, finely crafted, too good for profaners of oases to wear. It was you who broke the center of our enemy and urged us to action, and in no small part counseled us to this victory. This gift I make to the children of Yargai, a gift of friendship and thanks. And he'll have Tarbur like hand it over and like lay it before yourself, Qadan.
Qadan will pick it up. It'll sort of hiss as he picks it up off the floor, and then he'll pass it over. My Khan, everything in our clan is yours to give and to distribute as you choose. And he hands it over to Teneka.
He gives a slow nod. I think he would want to refuse it, but given the circumstance and implications, he'll nod and thanks and take the singing steel shirt and lay it before himself, and then nod and bow low before Ulun the smiling. My thanks, Khan. There were a great many things shall make amongst these brigands and their coin too. They've had some luck in their pillaging, no doubt. These profaners are seen to and scattered in the sands, no small part to you, my brothers and sister, he says, maybe going too far. I would offer you always the hospitality of my gur, and to become as one, as Dalat, that you've fought alongside us and bound these brotherhoods and sisterhood in mutual blood. What say you? Will you accept my gifts and a place in my Khanate for all good?
I just rolled for Sarnai, and she absolutely blanches and doesn't hide it at all when he suggests that.
Teneka just does his best Yargai impersonation.
Chillin is doing the same. He's just trying to stare into the middle distance and not give anything away. Though he would maybe turn to look at Teneka. But I guess we wouldn't speak.
Ulun is smiling and asks the question to all, but looks only at Qadan.
Qadan has a liking for Ulun. They sort of hit it off first time, and he's sort of at first looks delighted at the offer, and then he notices Sarnai looking pale and almost angry, and the other's stony distance, and he sort of then his sort of the reaction you could see in his face slowly turns to a sort of mask, and he turns to Teneka and says, "The quiet wolf speaks for us."
He says nothing, and so it is no. And then at that, Altani will step forward from behind her brother's side. Such disrespect! How can you refuse? Exiles, dust on the wind! And she goes to hurl more abuse before Ulun ceases his smile and raises a hand, and she soon finds silence. Tarbur regards her as if that was improprietous. Then back to you guys.
It's a generous offer, very generous, and we're grateful for it. We are not Dalat. We are Nikan. We're wolves. And you put wolves and cats in the same place, and there is trouble. He'll say with this sort of grin, trying to lighten the mood a little bit.
You are exiled wolves, though.
We are the only wolves. And his smile will fade to a stony stare.
He's right, brother, says Tarbur. You cannot cook 2 ram's heads in the one pot.
Qadan is frowning and looking into the fire. He's troubled.
It would be easy to stay here and become comfortable here with your tribe. You have been most welcoming and most generous. But the easy thing is rarely the correct thing. And we have been usurped and betrayed. And I cannot let that rest, nor can Teneka, nor Qadan, nor Saranai. We are the true children of the wolf.
But there can be friendship between the wolves and the Dalat.
Can there, says Ulun, turning to regard Chulun.
Friendship? Certainly. I think there already is a friendship. And winter is hard, especially when there are just 4 of us. Although we are 4 mighty. A friendship. A friend made in hard times is a real friend. As we said when we first arrived.
But not of blood, says Ulun, understanding. And Altani is fuming at this, and Tarbur is just implacably considering it. Very well then. Take these gifts not in fraternity, but in friendship. There is more. Oh, sorry, you go.
Would it be inappropriate to take the gifts now that we say we're not going to become Dalat? Would it then be cheeky to take the gifts? Would it be more would Yargai have said, no, I can't take the gifts now? Does Children think?
I don't think Yargai would refuse a gift given in this kind of circumstance.
Okay.
I don't think it would be cheeky to take it, given that it's not like you spurned then left. I think that would then be cheeky. But it would also be even cheeky for him to retract the gift, even if he did take it in that circumstance, because he offered it. You can't take back a gift.
Yeah, you're just I guess Children wants to be clear on the fact that friends is one thing, but we are definitely the Nikan and we are not Dalat, without trying to be a dick about it or rude about it. He wants that to be clear, which hopefully it is.
There is more, friend, says Ulun, lightening his tone. Amongst those things pillaged from Alrid's ill-gotten gains, slaves, and he spits the word because your people and his don't really have slaves. It's not a known thing. It's a known thing, but you wouldn't even make a slave of cockchew. You know what I mean? It's against your law in the same way that holding oases are against your law, kind of thing. Komani women enslaved. They have a grim tale to tell that you should hear. Where is Olsen? Says the crone at this, and she pokes her head up and speaks for the first time. Tell him not to come to my bed late tonight. I do not wish him, she says, like completely improprietously. This would make people spit out their food. And Altani and Tarbur would just kind of keep stony-faced. And Ulun says, oh, he is coming soon. Don't worry, I will tell him, grandmother, you will sleep. I want to sleep peaceably. You will sleep peaceably, of course. I don't want him crawling about me. And she's just like goes off into a tirade for a bit. And he eventually like quietens her and acts like as serious about it as he did with the gift giving. And like they just kind of are used to the crone's actions. But at this, he will have the one of his warriors bring in a couple of women recovered from Alrid's camp. They all have the look of the people about them, like yourselves. And they've been changed into better garb and bathed in the oasis. And recovered somewhat from their incarceration with El Reed, though all three of them still look timid and fearful in the presence of what appears to be two Khans in a serious meeting. And they just stare down at their bare feet while the crone makes her tirades till she's calmed down by Ulun. And she stops speaking about Usun, who died decades ago. Tell the Nikon your tale, girl. Tell them, please, it is fine. Which one of you is Ibaka? And one of the girls steps forward. I am. Tell them what you told Tarbur. And then she looks across to you, Qadan, and then gets down in like a prostrate fashion. Oh, Khan, I must tell. And then she kind of realizes by the look on Sano's face and your own and Shulun's that she's speaking to the wrong Khan, and then kind of acts very flustered and worried and says to Teneka, but all of you within hearing, mighty Kokchu of the Nikon and his host, they came through our lands. They destroyed what Komani resisted them and scattered and exiled the rest. We refused to be wives of wolves, and so were cast into the wildlands. One of our own men took us and sold us here, even his own people as slaves, to Alrid and his host, and then he died for his sacrilege. They killed him anyway after they paid him. And she descends to sobbing at that. For her deprivations and then also for the destruction of her people that you guys, I guess, would be able to guess at. The end of winter, while we still camped, is when they came. They took us unaware. There were no raids. There were no talks. Just... And now we are exiled people. Now we have no one, no family, no Khan. That Ulun nods and says, I've set them free. Will not take Komani women into my camp. I saw their leader, the mighty Khan they call Kokchu. He had a blood-red eagle. It flew from his hand, cut men down, even as he did with blade and axe. His horsemen too many, and what Komani still live, to serve the Nikon now.
Sarnai cannot help the tear that traces down her cheek. This is perhaps one of her greatest fears, to be separated from her brothers, from her people forever.
Who is this man who sold you? He was of your tribe?
She nods.
And the rest of the men are dead?
Those who refused to join the Nikon.
What kind of men are these? He would like say that loud, even though he didn't mean to, because he's just like shocked that anyone betrays their like tribal identity like that.
Greedy men, she says, beguiled by the sen, and that's the reference for the Shao money that passes through on the Goldway. Those circle square hole discs that you'd recovered off the sorcerer Qadan, and others of their like, that for some reason the other peoples bordering the Hordelands seem to value so much, even though they can't shoot it or love it or eat it.
He picked up the coins, and I don't know if Sanai took some, but he'll have taken them and made a sort of bracelet, or no, a necklace. He'll have threaded a string through these, the ones with the holes in them, and he'll be wearing it as a bit of jewelry around his neck. But now
It'll be an opulent sign of wealth in some cultures.
He'll take off his necklace and look at it.
For Sen, she says, and points to that necklace.
Sen.
Tengri, the Skyfather, cursed him for his greed, and so he was killed. But I don't know why the Skyfather cursed us.
It cannot be the Skyfather's work that sees men act this way, sees our people resort to slavery, and sees our people value this worthless thing, and he'll like tug at the necklace that Qadan has for a second. It cannot be the Skyfather's work. There's something else here. Some other dark gods.
I agree, says Ulun. He points to the key, like the coin necklace, and the fine chain shirt of Shao make, and says there were goods, mainly weapons and armor, upon some of the notable slain of the enemy, those who served Al Rid, of fine Shao make. My fear is that this coin, these weapon armaments, are all ploys from the Shao, that they fund those in this land who serve their interest above the Choigan, and corrupt our desperate folk with the promise of metal that cannot be eaten.
It cannot stand. We have to do something about it.
He nods. You said the man you killed across the river, the mute who was heading for the Zamogedi, he too was garbed in the Shao, had Shao weapons.
He did.
He runs his tongue along his teeth at that, probably doing the same kind of mind map that Teneka is, Zamogedi to the east, Komani to the west, bankrolled by the Shao, destroying those in between.
Like children would want to go after either this like Kamani and like try and talk some sense into the rest of the Kamani, but he knows that they're with Kokchu, and there's only 4 of them, so he doesn't know what the next move is. He's like thinking and probably doing that sort of faraway stare.
Ulun, did I hear you correctly? You will not have these women as part of the Dalat.
They are, and he goes to speak, but then stops himself, feeling like the shame of speaking about them in a impolite manner while they stand right there. Obviously being unwilling to say that they're like forced concubines of Al Rid and his brigands, and from a broken, exiled people. That would not be fitting by the laws of his people, that he would take them. I would, if asked by a friend. He'll relent.
Is it unusual that Sarnai is a warrior? Like, are most women not?
No, in the more like smaller tribes or sorely beset tribes, all of the women are warriors too, and they
Yeah.
defend the baggage train while the men like fight on the mobile force, like with horse, around the camp. So yeah, it's definitely not uncommon. It's quite common.
But these are not like these women who have been like enslaved.
They don't appear to be warriorly, but then neither did Qadan 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Pah!
I mean, he doesn't really now either, I don't think.
Until he's standing over a gutted Ravorian spearman. I will take them, Sanai, daughter of Yargai.
Is that what you had in mind, Sanai?
Sarnai kind of shrugs a little and looks to Shulun and Teneka and says, "We are not Dalat. When we have goats, we will need someone to tend the herds."
We need a people.
The men of your tribe abandoned you and became what they think are wolves, but really are jackals, some scavenger hound. We are really the wolves. We are the Nikan. They abandoned the Kumani tribe and name. Maybe you could join us and become wolves. It's a hard life, though, as a wolf. You'll have to hunt and kill. And then he'll like shrug and then look at Teneka, realizing he's like spoken out of place.
Two of the women look at their feet. Will not meet your gaze, Chulon, in the presence of these Khans. The Torkagana does. She has a teary, like stony kind of glare for a woman, like that a woman this young should not possess. She says, "I have been Elrid's wife and huntress. I can kill and endure, and I need people too. I am an exile."
But if you think that you can kill and you can hunt and you can keep up with the wolves, and he'll shrug again and look to Teneka. But basically, he would offer these like women a chance to join the Nikan.
And Sarnai will speak almost softly towards the women who aren't looking up. You need not be a wife of a wolf to be part of the pack.
No, we steal our women. And he'll look to Qadan, knowing that he's always talking about that.
Ibaka shoots a smile to you, Sanai, and they nod acceptance. Even fearsome Tokagana.
Well, now
There's
they are part
much-
of the Nikan, like Chilin will say a little bit louder. There will be no more mention of what is behind them. They are Kumani no more. And they are nothing else no more. They are wolves. And he'll just like look around the tent at like their Khan, who had been like somewhat like looking at them in a certain way, and he would just like hold his eye contact for a moment. That sort of talk is to stop now that they're wolves.
Ulun gestures with his hands to the food at a space on either side of the crone. Come then, and sit, Nikon friends. And for this is nearly too much for Altani. Her eyes go wide as her Khan is allowing these Nikon undesirables to like sit like this, but she just stands there fuming. And they will take their place and gingerly take to the lamb and greasy goat meat and some of the black harag.
Ulun, you were generous offering 4 strangers a a yurt to sleep in and regain our strength and food in our bellies. In midwinter, these gifts are not nothing, but now we have increased to 7, and 7 mouths are a double to feed. It is time that we stopped living on your hospitality. I have a suggestion. We need a food supply. We need goats and sheep, and I'm sure you would not object to having more yourself. These Zamogedi who raid you across the river. I'm sure they have sheep. Do they not have goats?
They do. They graze their goats and sheep in the mountains beyond the winding through the winter, and then bring them down to the glades while they raid in the better times.
I am not a Khan. It is for our Khan to decide. But my suggestion is, we as friends raid together your enemies, and we as 2 tribes, we split the winnings.
Your tribe is 7, and mine is many.
Our tribe are wolves, and we were ferocious.
Ulun, the smiling, is his namesake, and smiles at that. That is true. Very well. A span of raiding against the Zamogedi through spring. We will split them and take what meat we can from them. Too long have they raided across the winding to our detriment. They must answer for why they bear shall steal and shall send in their pockets, and why they conspire with brigands who would profane the holy places, such as the one which we sit.
They forget who we are as a people. It's good that we remind them.
And you have
Then to this. Oh, you go.
You have given us gifts in friendship, and I consider you my friend, Ulun. And here, he stands up and pulls out his 2-handed sword. This was won in my first battle, and it has served me well, he says, not absolutely truthfully. Here. It is a fine blade for a warrior, and you have already won 1 victory, and we are planning more. Let it be a sign of our martial victories together as friends, at least for this spring.
He smiles, nods as he takes the friend gift. To the spring, then. And that's where we'll finish this session, I think, guys.
Ooh, boy.
Thanks for playing. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.